Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto x Akeno Highschool DxD Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Location: Ko Town. Place: Ko Private Academy, Class 3B. Time: 1620. Ko Academy wasn't an ordinary school by any means. As little as 10 years ago, it had actually been a boarding school for the future elite females of Japan, China, North and South Korea, China, Russia, and parts of Eastern Europe. While the boarding school was still open, it had become more open to the public and had expanded to not only included boys, but also a college division. The high school division was where the craziest amount of stuff happened. For one, almost all of the females of Ko Academy were model and movie star sexy. Sure, there were a few cute and petite girls, but considering most of the girls in Ko were rocking CDD cup breasts on average, it was crazy. Many of the boys that ran around the school were perverts that were only obsessed with the girls. Especially the great Woni-chans of Ko, or the duo of discipline. However, our story starts with one of the great ladies of Ko, the second most popular girl in school. Himejima Akeno, the 17-year-old woman, was the very definition of a Yamato Nadeshiko according to most of the boys in the school. Akeno could be considered quite tall for a Japanese woman, standing at 5 feet 6 inches with a voluptuous figure, large breasts that were easily the biggest in the school at F-cup and gravity-defying, very long black hair and mischievous violet eyes. Her hair is usually tied in a long ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs with 2 strands sticking out from the top and sloping backward, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place. She wore a white long-sleeved, button-down shirt with a black ribbon on her shirt collar worn under a black shoulder cape and a matching button-down corset, a magenta skirt with white accents, and brown dress shoes over black crew-length socks. The violet-eyed young woman was bored out of her mind at the moment. English was a bit of a boring subject, especially when one could speak it fluently. Maybe she should have signed up for German or French like her best friend. Then again, being a third year was challenging. None of the boys interested her. The girls who admired her were too scared to come near her, and those who she called her school friends were all basic yes men. It annoyed her to no end. Before anything else could go though her mind, she felt something vibrate against her breasts. Reaching into the hidden pocket of her shoulder cape, Akeno pulled out her cell and read the text she just received. Daddy, I'll be in town tonight around 7 p.m. Go to my place and wear something sexy. Don't plan on getting any sleep. Akeno blushed at the text, making a few of her friends look at her. Okay, Daddy, Akeno quickly texted back. It was a good thing Rias didn't need her tonight. Location: downtown Ko Academy. Place: Namake's condos, 9th floor. Time: 1700. Akeno walked up to the door of the 9th floor condo that her lover owned. She pulled out her spare key and opened the door, before closing it. The condo was pretty average if you asked her. A large open space was the living room with a spiral staircase that led up to the bedroom loft on the 2nd floor that overlooked the rest of the condo. 10-foot windows allowed a view over the city and into the condo were it not for the reflective coating on the outer windows. The couches were a light blue, as was the rug underneath the oak table. On the walls were a few scrolls that had ancient text on them, as well as several books on a case. The dark-haired young woman smiled to herself. She walked over to the closet and looked through the clothes that were there. Smiling to herself, she grabbed one out of the closet. It would knock his socks off. It would be another hour before the door opened to the condo, and in walked the owner. I'm home, came the voice of the owner as he slipped off his business shoes. Stepping more into the room, he heard the bubbling of the rice cooking and soup boiling. Akeno came from around the corner and smiled. Welcome home, Naruto-san, said Akeno, wearing nothing but an apron, stockings, and a thong. The now named Naruto was a young businessman who had just inherited Senju Industries from his descended father Senju Minato. He had only just graduated college at 24 and now at 25 was already making headlines and breaking boundaries. Not to mention that he was handsome, to say the least. Standing at 6 feet 3 inches, he was much taller than the average Japanese man. Probably had something to do with the European blood flowing, though his veins, well built, not like bodybuilders of guys who went to the gym just to go. He was built like every muscle was to be used. A warrior build, blonde hair that was spiky in appearance, purple eyes that if Akeno didn't know any better would signify him as a crow, 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek, birthmarks. Akeno knew that on his stomach was a strange tattoo, but had never asked about it. He wore a navy blue suit, white dress shirt, and matching suit pants. Akeno licked her lips. He wouldn't be wearing those cloths for long. Naruto smiled. The young man smiled as he walked up to Akeno and kissed her on the lips. Akeno tried to keep herself from moaning, but Naruto's hands found her ass and lifted her into the air. Akeno wrapped her legs around his waist as he began to walk to the bedroom. "Daddy, what about the food?" asked Akeno, her voice heavy with lust. "You already set it aside on a warmer," growled Naruto. Akeno smirked. "You know me too well, Daddy." By the time they made it to the bedroom, Naruto had shed his clothes and had already begun to ravage Akeno. It would be close to 5 in the morning before Naruto had finished taking Akeno every way he could think of, and some rather inventive ways. In the bed, on the wall, against the glass, back in the living room, and in the bathroom. Of course, that was the norm when Akeno was in the arms of Naruto. Every hole of Akeno's was filled at least twice with his cum. Were it not for several factors, Akeno would probably be pregnant with triplets right now. It was nearly noon when Naruto awoke from his sex-induced sleep. He looked down his chest to see Akeno sleeping soundly. Naruto smiled at her, before kissing Akeno on the forehead. It had been about 2 months since Naruto had last seen Akeno. Naruto sat in a chair as he worked on some work for Senju Industries. While many people would be remissed in understanding what they actually did, Senju Industries, they were a medical company that had holdings in several other industries from electronic to entertainment. He currently only wore some jeans. While it could be considered strange, Naruto didn't really care. He went to rub his head when he saw a call coming in. Naruto hit the button, making the screen pop open and show a man who could pass for his older brother, but with orange hair with black stripes in it and red eyes. In truth, this guy was probably closer to his ancestor's age. In the background, Naruto could make out the naked body of a blonde woman with multiple tails. Kurama's mate. "What do you want, Kurama?" asked Naruto, leaning back. Kurama smirked. "Someone got laid last night." "Why are you surprised?" "I do have a wife and several children, you know," said Naruto. Kurama waved his clawed hand. "Bah! Your legal wife is a succubi who runs one of the hottest strip clubs/escort services in Las Vegas. A wife you haven't seen in a year, by the way, and your supernatural wife is the queen of vampires. Who, due to the infighting between the Dark Lord's faction, you haven't seen in 5 years. Hell, thanks to that prick Shuzen claiming your daughter as his own, you haven't even seen her in that amount of time. If you would just allow me to declare war " started Kurama. Naruto narrowed his eyes. "No, Kurama. We've both been through too much and lost so much more. War with the vampires would defeat the purpose of me marrying Akasha. The infighting with the Dark Lords has nothing to do with us, and Shuzen is personal business, not political." Kurama growled. "The fact that he is keeping one of my nieces hostage is political business. Yasaka may be the Foreign Affairs Minister of the Kyoto Yokai faction, but we both know that I am the Minister of the Army, and you are the ruler of Kyoto. Why you insist on us hiding our strength is beyond me." Naruto leaned back in his chair. "It took a lot for us to fool heaven into thinking we were dead. I want to keep it that way. As for Kyoto, remember that the only reason Tsukiyomi and Amaterasu allowed us to keep going without their supervision is because the other factions are all watching the biblical faction's truce." The nine-tailed fox did indeed know this. In fact, it was his idea to follow in the footsteps of the other factions and bow out, as it were. However, had he known that the devils were going to set up shop in their backyard, he would have obliterated them in the last war. That was well over 3,000 years ago at this point. "Fine, I coincide. I called to let you know that several humans from the Angel faction were caught infuriating the Senju head office here in Kyoto," said Kurama. Naruto narrowed his eyes. "Who gave the order?" asked Naruto. Kurama shrugged his shoulders. "Unknown at this time. But we do know that it came from at least the 5th heaven. If not the 6th. Michael and Gabrielle wouldn't risk their people on a whim. They know that Senju HQ is nearly impenetrable thanks to the seals I placed around the building, plus it's part of the Yuki faction territory. That's asking for an ass-kicking, Uzumaki style," said Naruto. "You're thinking Raphael or Uriel?" asked Kurama. Naruto shook his head. "No. More likely a human working on some convoluted reasoning," said Naruto. Kurama nodded. "I'll keep you informed, but you need to hurry back to Kyoto. Kunu-chan misses her uncle," said Kurama, turning off the monitor before Naruto could speak. Naruto sighed, before cutting off his computer. It would be another hour before Akeno rose from her sex coma. At which point Naruto and Akeno would resume last night's activates. Location: Ko Academy Old School House. Place: Occult Research Club. Time: 0000. The Old School House was up until 10 years ago the primary used school of Ko Private Girls Advanced Academy. Instead of a Japanese feel, it had more of a Victorian-era look. It was just off of the main campus close to the gym, surrounded by a small forest within the school grounds. It was 2 floors high and was the place used by the Occult Research Club as their headquarters. Many people often inquired about how to go about joining the ORC, but it was a tight group of people with it only having 4 members. The Prince Charming of Ko, Yuro Kiba, the mascot of Ko Academy Tojo Kaneko, and the 2 great ladies, Himejima Akeno and Rias Gremory. Of course, that was a front for the truth. The truth was that the members ORC were actually one of several supernatural races that existed. Of course, depending on the race, you either existed in your own unique dimension or lived on Earth. The members of ORC were devils, one of several races that existed within the underworld. The leader of this ragtag group was known as Rias Gremory, heiress to the Gremory noble devil family. The young woman was beautiful. At 18 years old, she stood 5 feet 8 inches and was quite voluptuous with an hourglass figure and large DD cup breasts, blue-green eyes that held unrivaled intelligence. Her most distinctive feature is her long, beautiful crimson hair that reaches down to her thighs with a single hair strand sticking out from the top. Her hair also has loose bangs covering her forehead and side bangs framing her face. She wore the school uniform PF Co Academy. She looked at her cell phone in annoyance as it rang for the 5th time before ending the call. She signed in annoyance. "No luck again, Rias?" asked Kiba, a blonde-haired boy with blue eyes. He wore the male uniform. He was Rias's knight, one of the members of her peerage, reincarnated beings of another race to serve under their king. Rias just so happened to be his. Rias looked up from her desk and gave Kiba an annoyed look. "No. I understand that she has the weekend off, but this can't wait. If Kaneko is correct, then not only is Haida-san a potential new member of our peerage, but his family history is quite interesting." Kiba picked up the folder. "It still makes no sense to me. Below average grades, no exceptional skills. His family spent about 2 to 3 years attending the local church, before it was abandoned due to reasons unknown. Honestly, Issei-san looks like he's on the fast track to be a low-end salary man who spends his money on hookers," said Kiba. "So a possible Christian with no real connection to the church," said Rias. 1. Kiba shrugged his shoulders. "Possibly, but we have to deal with the crows that moved in recently," said Kiba. Rias leaned back in her chair. "I've already spoken with Sona about this. Until they attack someone or interfere with us directly, we can't do anything. Normally, while you and Kaneko would be out doing contracts, I would speak with Akeno about this kind of thing, but she has the weekend off." "Please don't apologize, Rias. Whatever Akeno is doing must be important if her cell phone is off," said Kiba as he gathered the papers and left the office. Rias looked at her cell phone. "I hope so," said Rias. Location: Downtown Ko. Place: Naruto's condo. Time: 1000. Soft music played throughout the condo as Akeno and Naruto cuddled on the couch. Naruto in some softs and Akeno in one of Naruto's shirts with fell off her left shoulder and stopped at mid-thigh, reveling the edge of her pantyless ass. As she curled up on her lover, Akeno couldn't believe that she had actually managed to fulfill part of her dream. Many people would find it strange the way Akeno took her contracts. Then again, devils often did things strangely when it came to contracts. No longer the soul-taking Machiavellian schemers they were only 2,000 years ago. These days, devils enjoyed the finer things when it came to contracts. Akeno's contracts were usually for businessmen in high positions or lonely housewives who needed a friend. The housewife's contract was often due to the fact that the woman wanted someone to listen to their worries and drink tea with them. The businessmen, however, wanted more than just a talking buddy. Many of them wanted shoulder rubs, cooked dinner, and some of the older ones who never had time for a family just wanted Akeno to pretend to be their child. Some wanted a spoiled daddy's girl, others wanted a disciplined, no-nonsense child. Those were her clients more often than not. However, it was the others that she had a bit of a problem with. Akeno made it no secret to her best friend that she wanted her first boyfriend/time having sex to be an affair. Of course, Akeno always said that it would be Ria's boyfriend just to see what her friend did. Was it strange? Yes, but Akeno still had standards when it came to a future partner. Sure, even as early as 13 years old she could have had a harem of affair partners if she really wanted to. Thanks to her father's blood, her body matured much faster than those in her age group. Hell, Rias had barely budded and Akeno was rocking a C-cup at just 13. The first time a businessman had propositioned her she had been 14. He was older, nearly 55, balding, quite rich, and had 4 children and a wife. Not really her type, to be honest, but he normally summoned her to poly the part of disobedient child. A role Akeno had become well versed in with other clients. 2. One day he told Akeno that he wanted to punish her. Akeno had no problem with this as she had been on the receiving end of a belt a few times. However, what he did went beyond that after giving her behind a good lasting. He had been aggressive and demanding, pushing her against the wall and attacking her neck with kisses and groping her breasts and ass. While Akeno liked that kind of thing, she would only ever allow the man Shichi chose to do that to her. Akeno hit him with a blast of lightning that nearly killed him. She called Grafia, her mentor and mother figure, to the location and told her what happened. In a rare show of emotion, Grafia froze the man to death, banished the new statue to Antarctica. After that, Akeno had been more careful with her clients. 3. Interestingly, at 14 she had met Naruto when he was 21 and attending college and working as a gopher for the COO, since his father had had failing health. Naruto had summoned her and just asked for a date and companionship. Akeno was honestly captivated by his beauty at the time and figured that he was going to be another asshole who tried to get into her panties. To her utter surprise, Naruto had been an utter gentleman when it came to their date. From there they would meet at least twice a month. That was before Naruto took a position in the company as the deputy chief of staff. At which point Naruto and Akeno would meet once a month. Nothing ever happened, just dates, talking, and 6 months into him being her regular making out and light petting. When Akeno was 16, Naruto got married in a politically arranged marriage by his godfather. A woman that Akeno had never seen, not even in pictures. Instead of Akeno getting angry or cutting Naruto off, Akeno waited until Naruto was officially married, before she offered herself to him. That first night had been amazing for her. The rest was history. From that point onward, Akeno had been given a key to Naruto's condo. She would then clean it once a week, since Naruto was gone fairly regularly. Only in town once every 2 months nowadays. Akeno was brought out of her thoughts as Naruto grabbed his phone and looked at a text. He sighed before closing it and raising from his seat. "What's wrong, Daddy?" asked Akeno. Naruto smiled at Akeno, before leaning down and kissing her. "I have to take a quick business call, Akeno-chan," said Naruto. Akeno smiled. "Hurry back," said Akeno. Naruto walked out of the room and picked up the phone. "Hello, Yasakane? Did you need something?" Naruto had a sister or sister figure? Interesting. Picking up her own phone, she looked at it and saw a total of 17 missed calls and 2 texts. All from Rias. Akeno frowned. She hated when her time with her lover was interrupted. She quickly called Rias. The phone rang twice before it was picked up. "Akeno, I've been calling all night," said Rias sternly over the phone. "Sorry, Rias, but I was doing something and didn't have my phone on. Aside from that, I had the weekend off," said Akeno, unapologetic. A sigh over the phone told Akeno everything that she needed to know. "I know, Akeno, but please be more reasonable, especially when I need to speak with you on sensitive matters that are important," said Rias. "Of course, Rias. But what did you need from me?" asked Akeno. "I think that we've found our next member of my peerage," said Rias. "Oh, and who would that be?" asked Akeno. "Hayate Issei," said Rias. Before Akeno could open her mouth, Naruto rounded the corner, fully dressed. "Akeno, I have to leave for a bit," said Naruto. "What was that?" asked Rias in shock, hearing a man's voice. "Nothing. I'll call you back, Rias. Bye," said Akeno quickly as she shut the phone. "Everything all right, Daddy?" asked Akeno. "Afraid not. I just got a text from my wife. My daughter got into some trouble in the States, and her mother sent her on the first flight over here. Why she didn't tell me sooner, I have no idea. My wife does some strange things," said Naruto. Akeno titled her head. This wasn't going to be good. "Do you need me to leave, Daddy?" asked Akeno. Naruto shook his head. "No, in fact you can stay. Honestly, I should have reigned in Kurumu a long time ago. Then again, a strip club is no place to raise a kid her age," said Naruto, rubbing his head. Akeno's face lit up hearing this. Naruto was married to a stripper? This was getting more and more interesting. If it was a political marriage he was under, what kind of sweet little girl he have? Or maybe the child was an affair baby. Oh, the possibilities. "So are you off to the airport?" asked Akeno. Naruto nodded. "Yes," said Naruto before he leaned down and kissed Akeno. Naruto was out the door in record time. Once he was gone, Akeno sighed as she got up. No need to spend the entire day alone without her daddy. Might as well go and see Rias. Location: Ko. Place: Airport. Time: 1100. The airport of Ko was bustling with activity as always. Even though it was only 11 in the morning, there was already a few incidents. Mostly due to a young woman who had just arrived from the United States. Several young men looked at the young woman, tried talking to her, or outright trying to take advantage of her, if not for the fact that she was much stronger than she looked and had sent them flying with a punch. Of course, the security didn't do anything to her, as her charm was just that strong. Then again, being the daughter of an arch-succubus and the strongest creature alive that her father was, well, she was stronger than a normal succubus by a fair margin. At just 15 years old, Uzumaki Kurono Kuruma, she has shoulder-length light ocean blue hair that is tied in a ponytail with a purple-made headband that has one gold star on the left side, deep purple eyes, thick long black eyelashes and large DD-cup breasts. Despite her soft, massive and bouncy breasts, she is also quite small, as she stands at 5 foot even, wearing long-sleeved white polo shirt with a red bow tie, plus a pale yellow-colored vest and a miniskirt that looks exactly like the school's uniform skirt. White baggy Sifuku Sailor Fuku's schoolgirl uniform socks and plain black dress shoes. She sat on the bench as she looked at her cell phone. She was currently annoyed with her mother for sending her away. Just because she had corrupted all the men and women who had entered their den and started a mass orgy that she didn't even get to be in, damn it, doesn't mean she should be sent away to her father. A man she was sure was going to be hers one day. Alexis pulled up to her, making her stand up. Naruto stepped out of his chair and walked around the car to stand in front of his child. Before Naruto could say anything, Kuruma flung herself at him. "Papa!" yelled Kuruma, squishing her breasts into Naruto's chest. Naruto wrapped his arms around Kuruma. "It's been a while, Mumu-chan," said Naruto with a smile. "Your Uncle Kurama and Aunt Yasaka miss you as well. Yasaka-ne even offered you a place in her yukai school," said Naruto. Kuruma let Naruto go and pouted. "No way, Papa. I'm going to attend school here." Naruto rubbed his head. While Senju Industries had an office here, it was one of the smaller satellite offices. While the main office was in Kyoto and the secondary office was in Tokyo. Honestly, it would be a bit of a pain to get his setup from the main office to here. "Let me get in contact with some people and get my stuff delivered here," said Naruto. "Yeah!" yelled Kuruma. Naruto smiled and grabbed Kuruma's bags before putting them in his trunk. Location: Downtown Ko. Place: Naruto's condo. Time: 1400 Sunday. The door to Naruto's condo opened with Naruto and Kuruma walking in. Kuruma looked around before she turned to him with a wide smile. "Is this your love nest, Papa?" said Kuruma, taking a whiff of the air. "I can smell the pheromones in the air. They smell grand. If Mama was here, anyone who had sex with would have been knocked up." "I swear you're just like your mother and aunt," whispered Naruto. "Akeno! I'm home." When no replay came, Naruto walked further into the condo and found a note left by Akeno. Apparently she had to get back to her king, as something urgent came up. She probably wouldn't see him for a few days. Naruto shrugged at this. He knew what being a devil entailed. Devils and the supernatural were something of an open secret in Kuo. It didn't take a lot to get into the know. Like most standard devil contracts, you were not allowed to reveal the supernatural to anyone not in the know. Considering that 15% of Kuo Academy, just the high school branch, were supernatural beings, not even including the elementary, middle, and college levels, it was safe to say that rumor and myth were things in Kuo. If the CEO of Senju Industries had to give an estimated guess, about 40% of Kuo knew that the supernatural existed. Naruto chuckled. "This is just temporary. I have a crew from Kyoto cleaning my main house up and moving things from the head office here. I should be able to start working with my major equipment Wednesday, but I'll start working from the Senju branch office here tomorrow. Although the director here is going to be in for a rude awakening," said Naruto as he sat Kuruma's things down. "What did the idiot do, Papa?" asked the blue-haired young woman. "He was embezzling funds, trying to sell company secrets, and harassing female employees," said Naruto. Kuruma frowned hearing this. "How was he able to get away with this for so long, Papa?" asked Kuruma. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. "Every time we had inspections and reviews coming up, he would make the complaints and evidence vanish. The head office of Kyoto is aware of the irregularities in the data that comes from Ko, but we never could figure out where the disconnect came from. I personally never did the investigation, but since I have nothing better to do, I'll personally handle it this time. I do have to make one change though," said Naruto as he whipped out his phone and shot off a quick text. Kuruma went to the fridge and looked at the items in the fridge. She frowned. "Papa, your fridge is empty," said Kuruma. Naruto froze hearing this. He turned as she opened the cabinet and found his hidden ramen stash. Kuruma turned and allowed her wings, horns, tail, and claws out. "Papa, what have I told you about eating nothing but instant ramen?" yelled Kuruma. Naruto took a gulp of air, knowing that he was a dead man. Location: Downtown Ko. Place: Senju Industries Hayadugora's IT office. Time: 1100 Monday. Hayate Goro wasn't anyone important. He was a middle manager in Senju Industries working in the HR department of the Ko branch. Senju Industries was large, having over 500,000 workers across Japan. The Ko branch only had 1,000 employees. Of course, some people hated working at the Ko branch, mainly due to the director, Ikari Gendo. The man did a lot of things that Goro tried to report to the main office, but Gendo was scary good at what he did. Information was his power, and he had absolute control of all the information that came out of Ko, but that was due to the fact of those who were on his payroll. Medical Director Akiji Ritsuko and IT Manager Ibiki Maya just so happened to be his two key allies. Goro knew the reason for this. Ritsuko was the lover of Gendo and Maya was in love with Ritsuko, and would do anything for her. And while Maya was the IT manager, she could flag Setteren words within their local system, before they ever left to the main servers. So despite Goro's best efforts, he was never able to flag Gendo for anything. He had even tried keeping a separate date folder on his personal computer, but because of a data linkage for work the files got flagged and deleted. Maya had told him that he needed to stop. Sure, she wasn't devoted to Gendo and was a nice young lady, but her love for Ritsuko would force her hand if he kept trying. That was a year ago, and since then Goro had stopped trying to bust Gendo, and allowed him to do as he pleased. It wasn't that he didn't want to get the bastard out, but he had his wife and son to think about. A knock on his office door. "Come in," said Goro. The door opened, and in walked the man who was just in his thoughts alongside his pet whore. Goro rose to his feet and gave a bow to Gendo, as much as he hated Dong so to such a loathsome man. "Ikari-san, welcome," said Goro. Gendo adjusted his yellow glasses. "As much as I hate to do this, I needed to come and see you in person," said Gendo. "About what, Ikari-san?" asked Goro. Ritsuko cleared her voice. "We received word this morning from the main office that Uzumaki-sama himself would be working from this branch for a period of a year," said Ritsuko. "Uzumaki-sama? The young heir to the previous president," said Goro. "Correct. Since we will have the young president himself, I will personally guide him to be a better president," said Gendo. "More like try and bind him to your way of thinking," thought Goro. "All key leaders will be meeting with him today when he arrives." "That includes you," said Gendo. Goro didn't say anything and walked out of the office with Ritsuko and Goro following. Since they were on the 4th floor of the building, they took the elevator to the lobby where their head of security awaited. A former major in the JSDF and one of the few people that wasn't an ally or an enemy of Gendo, Katsuragi Misato. Misato was as beautiful as she was kind, funny, and tactically brilliant young woman with long dark violet hair that is wavy with bangs parted to the sides and dark brown eyes. She wears a sleeveless black flapper dress with a cross necklace, a fancy red jacket with stylized accents and having the sleeves rolled up to her elbows, a black watch on her left wrist, and black ankle boots. Goro had always liked Misato. Not only was she a kind person, but she was funny. Oh, and next to her was the vice director of the branch, Futsuki Kozo, Gendo's only enemy in the entire company. There were other executives and department heads around, but Maya, Ritsuko, Futsuki, Misato, and Gendo were the 5 heads of the entire branch. The door to the front lobby opened, and in walked Uzumaki Naruto and a woman that was easily a goddess in human form. She stood at 5 feet 5 inches with probably the most regular-sized breasts that he had seen in Ko in years, being only a moderate C-cup, had long, straight, blue hair bound with taut bandages, dark eyes, and she wore red lipstick. Her flame blue eyes reminded him of a cat for some odd reason. She wore a simple blue skirt suit. If Goro could see into Gendo's mind, he would see the plans that he had for not only the young Uzumaki, but the woman as well. Gendo bowed with the executives following. "Uzumaki-sama. It is a pleasure to have you grave our buildings," said Gendo. Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Matatabi?" asked Naruto. "This is Director Ikari Gendo, age 48 years of age. Has 2 children that attend EVA Private Academy in Tokyo, is married to research agent Ikari Yui who works in the Tokyo offices. In the grand scheme of the business offices of Senju Industries, who would be ranked number 52 in terms of importance," said Matatabi. "That's quite impressive, miss." Matatabi. Nibi Matatabi. Personal assistant to Uzumaki-sama. "And in the office ranks I would be the 12th most important person in the company," said Matatabi. Gendo frowned at this, but as quick as it appeared it disappeared. "Understood, Nibi-san. We have already cleared locations on the 9th floor for your office, Uzumaki-sama," said Gendo. Naruto nodded. "It better be the head office that is supposed to be clear in each building in case I need to make it my office as is stated in every contract," said Naruto as he examined his fingers. "I would hate to have to fire you for misconduct." "Of course, it is Uzumaki-sama," said Gendo, hiding his annoyance at the upstart brat. Also, we will be having a meeting at noon to go over things about this branch. I expect all executives and department heads in my office. Anyone who has other plans or thinks that they can ignore me will finz themselves out of the job. Please do not test me, said Naruto. Naruto and Matatabi entered the elevator. One inside, Matatabi unleashed a burst of supernatural energy, frying the listening devices and cameras. That's coming out of your check, said Naruto. You know why I did it. Most of those devices were unofficial, used by a power-hungry fool to control his empire of glass, said Matatabi. Naruto chuckled. True. I could feel his lust for you throughout our talk, said Naruto. Matatabi rubbed up against Naruto, and began to rub him through his pants. If we didn't have so much work to do, I'd rip those pants off you and suck you dry of all that milk, said Matatabi. Naruto smirked and groped Matatabi's breasts, making her moan. Who said that you wouldn't be under my desk all day, growled Naruto as his eyes turned yellow, before taking her mouth in a passionate kiss. Location, Ko Academy. Place, Class 1C. Time, 1100. Kaneko was bored as she sat on the middle. The white-haired young woman who was the school's mascot wanted nothing more than to get out of classes and do something. Rias and the others were already at lunch, and Kaneko was going to be by herself at lunch. And so if you divide it by 15 you can get the answer C, said the teacher. Kaneko wanted to ignore him as he droned on and on. She was actually on the verge of sleeping when she felt it. She looked at the door and her eyes narrowed. A strong Yukai aura. What is it doing here? Why didn't Sona-sama or her peerage intervene? Thought Kaneko as she prepared to reveal her devil side if needed. The door opened, and in walked the principal of the high school division. He pulled the teacher aside and began to talk. Kaneko wasn't concerned about what they were talking about, her entire focus was on the yukai that was just outside of the door. The teacher nodded and stood before the class and clapped her hands, getting their attention. Okay, class. We have a new student joining us. She's a transfer student from all the way from the United States. Please come in, said the teacher. Kaneko was on guard as she awaited whoever was coming through the door. What she got was more than she bargained for. Instantly all the guys started to drool and look at the blue-haired beauty that wandered into the room and up to the board and wrote her name in perfect Japanese. Kurono Kuruma. The girl turned and Kaneko instantly had a dislike of this woman. Although it had nothing to do with her large chest cough, a cup angst cough. No, her aura was that of an B-class yukai. Unlike devils that rank themselves from low to superclass, and the angel caste, be it pure or fallen, that used their number of wings as an indicator of how powerful they were, yukai used a ranking system of FSS. There were even rumors of a SSS class and even a O-class yukai. Hello everyone. My name is Kurono Kuruma. I'm 15 years old and I hope we can get along, said Kuruma, winking at the class. Everyone went crazy and began to throw questions at her, many asking if she had a boyfriend, her 3 sizes, and other such questions. Kuruma took it all in and answered what she could, but told everyone that while she was proud of her 3 sizes, she would keep that to herself. Once everything was calm, she was told to sit in the empty desk next to Kaneko, too. As Kuruma sat down, she turned to Kaneko and stuck her hand out. Hi, I'm Kuruma. Kaneko looked at her hand before taking it. Toujours Kaneko. Kuruma smiled. I hope we can be good friends, Kaneko-chan. Location, Downtown Ko. Place, Senju Industries, Uzumaki Naruto's office. Time, 1900. The 9th floor office was massive, big enough to fit 2 studio apartments inside of it. All the windows were ceiling high. Naruto sighed in annoyance as he read through the reports that were on his desk. The Ko branch was a bigger mess than he thought. Naruto was going to have to do a lot to fix it. The meeting had run longer than intended, and Ikari had tried to take control and worm his way into the picture as Naruto's right-hand man. He was just glad that Matatabi shut it down before it got too far. Gendo definitely had an iron hold on the company in this location, but Naruto had a plan to fix that, but he was going to need help from 3 people to disrupt Gendo's power base. The knock on his door was his first of those 3 meetings. Enter, said Naruto. The door opened and in walked Hayato. The man walked and stood several feet away from Naruto's desk. You wanted to see me, sir? Asked Goru. Yes, I do. You see, Ikari-san thinks that the Kyoto offices are blind to what he's been doing, but we're not. In fact, we know what he's been up to since my father was in charge, said Naruto. Goru opened his mouth. But none of the things I've done have gotten out of this office. Which is why I'm giving you this, said Naruto, reaching into his desk and pulling out a mini laptop. It looked no bigger than an handheld gaming device. This has a direct link to the head office servers. Anything that you post there will be reviewed by the head offices. And since I know Gendo is going to try something, I have my team back at Kyoto looking into his accounts. Do your part and he'll be out of here within a month. Goro didn't know what to say, but he knew a plan when he saw one. Hi Uzumaki-sama, said Goro, before he left the office. Once he was gone, Naruto grunted as he felt a release of deep satisfaction. He rolled his chair back and looked at Matatabi, who was licking her lips of his excess seed, before she planted a kiss on his cock. Thanks for the meal, Naruto-sama, said Matatabi. Naruto sighed. Don't you have a job to do, you horny cat? Asked Naruto. Matatabi rose from her knees and straddled Naruto's waist. She sighed in content as she felt him in the deepest parts of her womb. Of course. My job is to take care of your professional life as well as take care of this bitch breaker you got here, moaned Matatabi as she began to rock her hips. Naruto's hands went to her hips. You're such a slut, groaned Naruto, enjoying the feeling of her walls. Only for you, Naruto-sama. Now Kitty wants you to knock her up like you've done to several sluts and bitches over the years, moaned Matatabi. Location, Ko Academy. Place, ORC Clubhouse. Time, 1000. A month. That's how long it had been since the fallen angels had moved into Ko. A month since they had set up shop at the abandoned church. A month since the Yukai had come into Ko. A month since she had discovered that Hayate Issei had a sacred gear inside of him. A month was a long time to Rias, aseptically with her problem looming in the background. Personally, she would rather have settled this with words alone. Reaching out, she picked up the pawn that was on her chessboard and moved it before the king piece. A knight, a rook, a bishop that she couldn't use, and a queen. From the outside looking in, her peerage was weak mess. Although it didn't matter. Her friends were her family, and her family was the strongest out of all the young devils since 2 of her current 4 pieces were sacred gear users. She could win, but it would take sacrifice. One she wasn't willing to make. Turning again, she looked at the board that contained 5 pictures of prospective people for her peerage. The Kendo Club co-captains Murayama and Keitase, the second most perverted girl in the school Ika Kiryu, the former baseball-playing bald pervert Matsuda, and then the below-average young man, Issei. All of them would have made good pieces for different reasons. Murayama and Keitase were actually pretty good swordswomen, and they would complement well with Kiba's sacred gear sword birth. Ika Kiryu because she had a latent talent for magic if Akeno was to be believed. Then there was Matsuda. He was a strong young man and he could easily be a defensive-style rook. Then there was Issei, the prize among them all and the person that she knew was going to be her pawn. He was a basic pervert, was destined to live an average life and die an average human. Were it not for something as simple as the fact that he had an unknown sacred gear. The only reason that Rias kept such a close eye on him. Normally she wouldn't have bothered with him. The feeling of a gear didn't mean anything. It was Kaneko who helped her figure it out. The smell of a sleeping dragon coming from his left arm. Rias, like many devils, had researched to a bit of research into the sacred gears. Rias in particular studied the 2 great dragons. The White Emperor Dragon and the Red Emperor Dragon. And it was well known that the Red Dragon Emperor is normally housed in the left arm of his host. The others were just there as a fallback. The door to her office opened and Akeno walked into the room. What is it, Akeno? Asked Rias, turning to the door. Yesterday, right after school ended, a fallen angel made contact with Hayate Issei. We need to move forward with Plan B, Rias. Rias looked at her pawn. I was afraid you would say that, said the red-haired she-devil before picking it up and moving it forward to D4. Location, Ko Town. Place, Senju Industries Ko Branch, Naruto's office. Time, 1200. Matatabi sighed as she walked into Naruto's office. Normally she would be quite excited to enter her lover's office. While it didn't seem like it at times, Matatabi was a consumerist professional. She was Naruto's right-hand woman, she would do anything for him. After they had come to this world several thousand years ago, Naruto had released her siblings to do as they pleased. The tailed beasts scattered across the globe. Sure, their influential natural powers had influenced some myths, natural disasters, and the like, but they never did it on purpose. It wasn't until they disappeared one by one that it became clear. The tailed beasts had come under attack. Everyone from Isabu to Gaiki vanished within the span of 50 years. It was probably 200 or so years before the start of the biblical wars that the angels began to hunt down Matatabi. It was some time after she had given birth to the 3rd generation of Nekasha with her then husband and Ikomata. Matatabi had actually been minding her own business, living in a rural village in Japan. She had also barely given birth to her third litter. What cats tended to give birth to quintuples and the like fairly regularly, she had been laying about after feeding her children when she felt the appearance of the angels. An entire battalion of angels had come to conscript them for their army over mounting tensions with their fallen brethren and the devils. Their leader at the time had been someone who had 8 wings. A weakling in her eyes, but Matatabi was only about an eighth as powerful as she was, but she refused to allow them to attack her village. She had went on the offense, and for 45 of the most painful minutes of her life she fought and fought and fought, all in the name of her family. In the time that she had defended the village, her husband and a few of the warriors and hunters managed to get her people and children to safety before joining the fight. Sadly, her husband had died during the battle. He fell protecting a comrade. When they had been pushed back and all hope was lost, Naruto, Kurama, and Shikaku showed up, and between the 3 of them managed to turn the tide of battle in their favor. Shortly after the battle, Matatabi would fall into a 100-year coma. All she knew was during her nap the war of the biblical factions ended, and her people and children had scattered throughout the human world and underworld. Matatabi fell into depression for a time, but Naruto had brought her out of it, and even introduced her to Kurama and his primary mate Yasaka, who helped heal her. Following this, Matatabi found herself working under Naruto as his second-in-command. Over the next 100 years she would help him take the battle to angels, fallen, devils, other yokai factions, even the Shinto gods. Before she knew it, she had fallen in love with the boy who at one point was like a little brother to her. Soon after the Shinto/Jade Empire War, at which point the yokai and Shinto had become one major faction, Matatabi and Naruto had become lovers. They had never had children, more due to Matatabi's own fear of losing them again than anything else. Naruto had told her that he understood and would wait for her to find her children so that they could be together. That day would never come, as over the years what had become a thriving population of children with her blood had divulged to a trickle of its former glory. Matatabi shook her head and walked up to Naruto and Security Chief Misato. Or rather, she walked in on them as Misato was bouncing on her lover's cock like a cheap whore, as Naruto looked over paperwork. "Fuck! Uzumaki-sama, you're so much better than Kaji ever was," yelled Misato as her eyes rolled into the back of her head. 1. Naruto didn't acknowledge her aside from a grunt of pleasure here or there as he was trying to do work. Matatabi wanted to laugh. Naruto had managed to break Misato within a week of him taking over, and it wasn't intentional either. One of Naruto's unique abilities was that he released a pheromone that unmated women found irresistible. Even with his abilities sealed off, it was still strong enough to make beings like lower-level fallen, devils, monsters of C rank and humans still want to jump his bones. In regular relationships, a person would get annoyed if their partner went around fucking anything with a pair of legs, but Matatabi knew that Naruto would have multiple mates or lovers. Misato probably wouldn't even be a permanent fixture in Naruto's harem. Could you even call 2 wives, an occasional lover, and a devil booty call not aware of the others a lover? "What's up, Tabi-chan?" asked Naruto. "Well, we got the information back from HQ. It's worse than we thought," said Matatabi. Naruto took the folder from her and narrowed his eyes as Misato screamed in his ear as she came before passing out. Human instrumentality with a rouge group of angels, Narvi and Seal, Eva, the complete merger of the human consciousness into one. "This man is out of his damn mind," said Naruto before sheathing himself inside of Misato and releasing a small load inside of her before pulling out. Misato fell onto the desk, a twitching mess, as her lower lips kept trying to milk what wasn't there. "So what are we going to do about it?" asked Matatabi. Naruto shrugged shoulders. "No need to rush. According to this information, human instrumentality is at least 3 years off and would require the destruction of half of humanity and the revival of the ancestral race." Of course the math was off by a wide margin, but it didn't matter. Even if they were off by a few, messing with forces that even the Pathans didn't want anything to do with was unwise. "Tell Yasaka that I need 8 assault teams prepped and ready to move out at my command. I have a time frame, but it's not going to happen for at least another 3 weeks to 4 months, said Naruto. "Anything else, Naruto-kun?" asked Matatabi. Naruto gave Misato's ass a solid smack, activating the seal that he had put on there the first night her had fucked her into oblivion. "I'll be with Kuruma-chan this Saturday, so unless it's an emergency that needs my direct supervision, I'm not to be troubled. Also get Misato dressed and back to her post. I'd rather she not come to and find herself here, especially since I activated the seal." "Understood, Uzumaki-sama," said Matatabi, slipping back into the character of just a loyal secretary. Location: Ko Town. Place: Central Park Eastern Fountain. Time: 1900. The father-daughter duo of Uzumaki Naruto and Uzumaki Kurono Kurumu had been an utter success if you asked Naruto. They had to pretend to be brother and sister in most locations. Naruto had taken Kurumu eating, shopping, and to the fairies' will. All in all, it had been a marvelous day. Currently the duo were walking around the park. "Papa, when are you going to call Mama and Auntie here?" asked Kurumu. Naruto chuckled. "You and I both know your mama is someone who plays by her own rules," said Naruto. Kurumu sighed. "Truth. I mean, she hasn't had to really feed on anyone in a long time," said Kurumu. A common misconception about Sukwai was that sex was the only way they feed. It wasn't true. They actually could feed just by entering someone's dreams. Sex was just easier to get the power they needed. Last time Naruto had been with Uchiha and her sister Kairo Shade last year. Honestly, he wasn't sure how he didn't end up impregnating both of them, a queen and an arch. Of course, that night 7 members of their den ended up pregnant, just not with his kids. Naruto and Kurumu looked at each other as they felt a barrier activate. Looking around for the source of the barrier, they found it. It was coming from an attractive young woman with violet eyes having a slender body. She had long silky black hair down to her hips and possessed 2 black feathered wings, wearing black, strap-like objects around and under her breasts, a thong-like piece held around her hips by 3 thin straps, gloves that ran right up her arms with small lengths of chains hanging from them, shoulder guard-like objects on her shoulders with 3 large spikes sprouting from her right shoulder, and black thigh-high heel boots. On her left wrist was a pink scrunchy bracelet. She had a boy's face in her hands. He was nothing special to look at. Average height with short, spiky brown hair, with 2 short locks of hair behind his head, and light brown eyes. He wore a black collared shirt, a gray sweater, skinny dark blue jean pants, and a white shirt over it. This was the son of Hayate Issei. Well, Naruto couldn't let anything happen to him. He needed Goro to be effective at his job. Naruto sighed in annoyance. Kuruma held her arm tighter as they watched the fallen angel throw her spear at Gora's son, if looks were to be believed. Naruto shrugged Kuruma off. Before vanishing in a blur of static and sound, he appeared before Issei and caught the spear with his hand before crushing it. "What?" asked Rainier, stepping backwards and glaring at Naruto. "Who are you?" asked a terry-fed Issei. Naruto glanced at him for a second, before looking at Kuruma. "Take this boy home, Kuruma. If you run into any more crows, I give you permission to do what you need to do to protect his life as well as yours. Even up to full release," said Naruto. Kuruma appeared next to Issei and grabbed his arms, before sprouting wings. "Yes, Papa," said Kuruma. "And who do you think you are?" asked the fallen angel. Naruto looked at the girl before him closer. She looked really familiar. In less than a second his brain searched thought years and found a woman who looked like her. It was of a wedding. A forbidden love. "You're Azazel's kid. You look like your mother. If I remember correctly, Sarah," said Naruto. Rayonra stiffened at the mention of her mother. A human excommunicated nun. Excommunicated because she tasted that which is forbidden to all maidens serving under the Lord's name. Sex. To the best of her knowledge, Sarah was the only woman her father had lain with. This led to both Azazel's fall from grace and the start of the Grigori. This was the reason that she had never seen the grace and glory of heaven. But the stiffness quickly left her body. With a roar of anger, she pulled all of her energy into the spear as a second pair of wings burst from her back, dripping blood, as she created another pink spear and threw it at Naruto. The spear was only feet from Naruto, before he caught it and crushed it. Reina looked at Naruto in slight fear. No human should have been able to stop the attack of a 4-winged fallen angel. Vanishing from her sight, Rayonra looked around as she heard the sound of static every few seconds. Naruto appeared before her and went for a punch, but stopped shy of her face. Rayonra was about to mock him, but was blown away by an unseen force. Whatever had hit her was too strong for her to correct herself in time. Instead, she was sent those several trees almost 100 feet away from where Naruto was. Naruto pulled his fist back and looked at it. "Way too much force," said Naruto. Rainier flew into the air panting. She was bleeding from several wounds and other such injuries. Wiping her mouth, she glared at him again. "Who are you? From the fact that I can't sense a demonic aura on you, I'd say you're no devil. Nor do I feel any holy energy, so you're no angel, and I know all fallen thanks to my father, so who are you? A yokai?" Naruto rubbed the back of his head. "The fact is that if I tell you who, or more specifically what I am, it's going to open a can of worms so big it will make the biblical war seem like a schoolyard scuffle. It's been more than 100 years since I've had to actively get involved with anyone other than the vampire and western monster factions. Don't make me get involved in a pissing contest between 2 little girls and their friends," said Naruto. "If you don't tell me now, I'll cut you to ribbons, you bastard," yelled Rainier. Naruto sighed, before he looked at Rainier dead in her eyes. Before Rainier knew it, she felt something akin to primal fear gripping at her head. She began to hyperventilate before falling from the sky and laying on her ground, barely managing to get to her hands and knees, before pissing herself in fear. Looking back to the man, she saw that he was now mere feet away from her. She scrambled backwards in sheer terror, trying to find her voice. "Monster!" yelled Rainier, as tears began to run down her face. Monster is a subjective term. To a canary, a cat is a monster. You're just used to being the cat, said Naruto. Rainier didn't stick around any further, as she flew off into the night. She had to tell the others. To warn them. Stay away from the whiskered man with blonde hair and eyes that could invoke fear on a level that not even her father could do. She had to warn them of the creature that existed from the old war. The strongest creature was in Ko and wanted to be left alone. Location: Ko Town. Place: Hayate Residency Sei's room. Time: 1905. Kuruma flew Issei to his house, before pushing the window open and flying in before dropping Issei on his bed. Kuruma landed on her feet, before putting both her hands out and muttering a few words. A blue barrier appeared around the room, preventing sound from escaping as well as any supernatural power above a certain level from being felt. Kuruma turned to Issei and found that he was a drooling mess. "Oops. Forgot to turn off the charm," said Kuruma as she pulled her excess power in. It took a moment, but Issei was able to regain his composure before shaking his head. "Where am I? The last thing I remember is Yuma tried to kill me," said Issei. Kuruma leaned on the desk. "Yeah, that tends to happen from time to time," said Kuruma. Issei looked at Kuruma and couldn't help but focus in on her breasts, those large, lovely bouncing orbs that were just out in the open aside from a thin bikini keeping her nips from view, a super thong and black wings and horns. Wait, wings and horns. "What the hell are you?" asked Issei. Kuruma rubbed her head while ignoring the fact that Issei was staring at her tits. She was used to it at this point. "Normally my dad would answer this, but I'm a succubus and you, my friend, have just found yourself in the supernatural world all because you wanted to get your wet," said Kuruma. Location: Ko Town. Place: Hayate Residency Sei's room. Time: 1905. The room grew eerily quiet after the bombshell that Kuruma dropped on Issei. Supernatural? Fallen angel? Succubus? Wait, a succubus. The sex demon that had sex with men and took their life force though their junk. And she was a hot piece of ass if he ever saw one. Damn, this was a blessing if he ever saw one. He had to shoot his shot. Right here, right now. And if he failed, well, he had some decent spank bank material. "Will you have sex with me?" asked Issei almost desperately. Kuruma laughed. "Sorry, Han, it's not that simple. Even with the power you possess, you're not even on my radar for a destined one, darling," said Kuruma. "Power? Unless I have a legendary dong or something, I'm nothing but a regular high school guy," said Issei. "Not according to all the females in school. You're the leader of the perverted trio. However, considering that yours is actually pretty big, I'm shocked you haven't gotten a girlfriend yet," said a grinning Kuruma. 1. School. You go to Ko Academy? Asked Issei. Kuruma stuck out her tongue. Uzumaki Kurono Kuruma, Class 1C, heiress to Arch-Succubus Kurono Ajiha. Nice to meet ya, Issei-san. So what happens now? Asked Issei. Kuruma took out her phone. Nothing. We wait here until Papa calls me and I go home. I'm just going to shop until I get the okay to leave. Feel free to jack off to my tits. Personally, I don't really care. Issei sighed as he tried to wrap his head around everything that had happened. That and the fact that a beautiful babe was in his room. And the fact that he really wanted to rub one out to the beautiful girl in front of him wasn't helping matters. Location: Ko Academy. Place: ORC Clubhouse. Time: 1930. Rias paced back and forth in her office. It had been over 30 minutes since the sun had set, and still her magic circle had not triggered. The plan had been easy and slightly outside of the rules of devil reincarnation that had been established in the truce. A person had to be asked to be reincarnation of their own volition, however a loophole had been discovered. A person who died, but had a strong will, could be reincarnated within 5 to 15 minutes before they fully passed on. Beyond even heaven or hell. The true afterlife. A place no one had ever been. Akeno summoned Kiba and Kaneko from their contracts. Tell them it is an emergency situation. We need to investigate why Hayate-san hasn't summoned me yet, said Rias. Akeno nodded as it was indeed strange. She pulled out her cell phone and was about to text them in their group chat, but was stopped at the sound of static behind her. Akeno held up her hand, summoning lighting and turning to attack the person behind her, only for her hand to be stopped. "Is that any way to greet me, Akeno?" asked the person. "Akeno!" yelled Rias as she summoned her own power of destruction. "Get away from her or I'll see you to the underworld." "Please calm down, Rias," said Akeno calmly as Naruto released. "I guess it's best that I introduce you. Rias, this is Uzumaki Naruto, president of Senju Industries, one of my clients, and my lover, although he has some explaining to do." Rias's jaw dropped open. She had always known about Akeno's desire to have a lover from an affair, but she didn't think she would try it until Rias got a boyfriend. Although this did leave her the question of how this man got past their defensive barriers. Naruto chuckled. "You got me there, Akeno-chan. First and foremost, allow me to apologize. While you are correct in my title as president of Senju Industries, that is my human title, I have more than one supernatural title. However, I'll tell you my original title. The Demon Shinobi," said Naruto. Rias and Akeno both gasped hearing his name. The Demon Shinobi had been an enemy of the new Satan faction during the Devil's Civil War. He was responsible for killing off at least 8 Pillar families single-handedly. He had also fought all the Satans at least one-on-one, and in one of the most famous battles he had fought Surzex and Ajuka in a 2-on-1 situation, and he had escaped with his life, although after that fight he vanished. Many assumed that he had died from his injuries. Apparently that wasn't the case. Rias narrowed her eyes. "You still wanted in the underworld for the crimes you committed during the war," said Rias. Naruto smiled at this. "The history books are written by the victors. Had the old faction won, I would have been a hero. Good to know you guys have long memories, but honestly, I don't really care. I'm not a citizen or subject to the laws of the devil faction as a whole," said Naruto, taking a seat in the chair at Rice's desk. Rias stepped behind her desk, but had sent a message off to Kiba and Kaneko to arrive as quickly as possible. "So what do you want?" asked Rias, keeping a small ball of destruction hidden in her hand. "You can put that power away. It would do you as well as that butter knife on your table. I'm here to parley. What I want from you, and want nothing, except for you to honor the treaty and not convenience its laws about the evil peace system," said Naruto. Rias reluctantly released the ball in her hand. "How do you know about that?" asked Rias with narrowed eyes. "The evil peace system isn't exactly a secret. Especially after what your idiot brother and the other Satans failed to stop a retaliation attack on a Yukai village because a reincarnated devil went rouge. A protected Yukai village at that," said Naruto with narrowed eyes. "That had nothing to do," started Rias. "Child, I'm not going to get into this with you. That situation is way above your pay grade and sits in your brother and Seraph's court, as it was on them to keep devils in line. I'm not here to argue morality, and who's at fault in that situation. I'm here to tell you to not get the people of this city caught up within your fight," said Naruto. Rias narrowed her eyes. "Ko is the shared territory of the Hariases Gremry and Citri. We care deeply about all those who reside within our territory, from out servants to those unaffiliated." Naruto leaned back in his chair. "This territory is on loan to those clans from the greater Shinto/Yukai faction that rules all of Japan. Devil's primary territory on Earth is Europe, and since the eradication of the Americas pantheons, all of North America. Your claims to this territory can be revoked if certain conditions are met. One of which is the forcing of someone into your peerage against their will or facilitating the death of one who is unaware of the supernatural. Also tell your knight and rook that they need to practice their stealth skills." Naruto turned and caught Kaneko's fist and Kiba's blade. He gave Kiba a once-over, before looking at Kaneko. Naruto's eyes widened slightly, before he released them both. Before they could attack again, all 4 members of the ORC were on their hands and knees, each of them having seen their death multiple times over. Kaneko was throwing up, Akeno eyes blank, as if she had shut down to spare herself to pain of the aura that was inside of the room. Kiba was shaking like a lead, but on closer inspection he was barely holding on from taking his own life. Rias was the first to recover. After taking a big gulp of air, her hand shot to her forehead where he had used a finger and pierced her brain, before her hand moved to her heart where Naruto had ripped it out, and looked at Naruto, who had returned to his seat. Rias looked at him with narrowed eyes. "Please stop looking at me with such hateful eyes, Miss Gremry. I only released a bit of my killing intent to stop a fight before it started," said Naruto. "Such pure hate. There's no way you could have hidden it the way you did," said Kaneko as wiped her mouth. Naruto looked at Kaneko from the corner of his eyes with pity. "Child, you have no idea how much hate I've had to hold back over the many years I've been alive. How much pain I've had to endure, how much blood I've had to spill. It grows heavy on your soul after so long, said Naruto as he stood up and reached into his pocket. He produced a business card and placed it on Rias's desk. What are you doing? Asked Rias, managing to get to her seat. While it's been a long time since I've actively fought or trained anyone, I'm still a mercenary at heart. I'm giving you a chance to hire me if you need me, said Naruto. Why? Asked Rias. Naruto walked over to Akeno and picked her up, before placing her on the couch, before tapping her forehead and sending her into a dreamless sleep with a seal that would help repair her mind. He then grabbed his cell phone and sent a text to Kuruma. Believe it or not, regardless of how we met, I found myself falling in love with Akeno-chan here. You're her master and best friend. I don't care about what you devils or other beings in the supernatural community get up to, but anyone who harms mine will find themselves in for a world of pain, said Naruto as he vanished in a burst of static. Rias looked at the card on her desk. If his offer was true, then he was invaluable. Location: Ko Academy. Place: Abandoned Crutch. Time: 0020. Rainier sat on her busted throne inside of the abandoned church. She kept replaying the events of the evening over and over in her mind. That man. He had been so strong, so dominating. She shivered in fear at the thought of fighting this man again. She whined as she felt her second pair of wings flex themselves. Anger had pushed her over the edge and past her power threshold. She was already powerful compared to the others, but now, even with her power doubled, she was still nowhere near as powerful as that man who she had fought. What's eating you, Rainier? Asked a woman who came down from the rafters and landed before her friend. A tall and buxom woman with brown eyes and long, navy blue hair that obscured her right eye. A maroon, trench coat-like top with a wide collar, a matching miniskirt, and black-heeled shoes. The trench coat top was open at her chest, giving view to her breasts and cleavage. She also wore a gold necklace around her neck. Behind her back was a single pair of wings. This was Calawarna, Rainier's best friend. Where are the other two? Asked Rainier. Donaseek decided that he was going to go on a midnight stroll, while Middlet is looking for a good fuck tonight, said Calawarna as she straddled Rainier's lap. Not the point. What's eating you, love? Rainier sighed as she leaned back in the chair. The person who stopped me from killing Issei knew my mother, said Rainier. Calawarna knew that Rainier's mother was a sore subject for her. Rainier had been born during the Crusades, a time where Calawarna herself had already been on the verge of falling due to her own anger at the fact that devils were killing her friends. When Azazel fell, it took years for her to follow after the man, but later on she became good friends with Azazel's lover and later something of a godmother/mentor to Rainier. Calawarna was heartbroken when she died when she reached the end of her natural lifespan. She had taught Rainier how to summoning her spear, taught her how to fight. She had even taught Rainier how to kiss. It was safe to say that she loved Rainier, be it as a sister, friend, or even lover was hard to say. Even Calawarna didn't know for sure. It was one of the reasons she had followed Rainier on this mission. Not out of loyalty to Azazel or the rest of the cadre, but loyalty to Rainier. I'll handle things, Rainier, just be prepared for the girl to come soon, said Calawarna, giving Rainier a light kiss on the lips, before she took off into the night sky. Rainier sighed. That's right, Issei wasn't her only goal. Getting up, she pulled out one of her father's books on sacred gears. Turning to the page that she had been looking at, she read it over again. The Power of Twilight Healing. Location: Ko Town. Place: Senju Industries, Naruto's office. Time: 1645. Gendo and Ritsuko walked towards Naruto's office. Gendo in a huff, while Ritsuko was just trying to keep up. Once he was upon the large doors that lead to Naruto's office, he threw them open and glared at Naruto, who wasn't at his desk, but seated at what amounted to a small lab, eating a bowl of ramen as he read over something. Naruto turned to Gendo and slurped up his noodles. I don't remember calling for you, Gendo? Said Naruto. Gendo narrowed his eyes. No, I needed to come and speak to you about something you did, said Gendo. Naruto set down his noodles. Oh, and what is that? Ritsuko stepped up. So why did you feel the need to shut down Terminal Dogma? That location housed at least 70% of this branch's information and research, said Ritsuko. Naruto put a hand on his forehead before he snapped. Oh, that place. Yeah, I had to shut it down since it was drawing too much energy and data. It also seems that my executive position as president of the company didn't allow me entry into the terminal. There was a good reason for that, sir. I personally vet everyone who works the terminal, and unfortunately, since you haven't been vet, I couldn't allow you access. The process was in place before you got here and I never got around to getting you access, said Gendo. Naruto nodded. Understood, Gendo, but it still needed to be shut down. Especially if one of our rival companies caught wind of it. I'm not opposed to reopening the terminal, but I need it to go under revision, said Naruto. Gendo looked at Naruto and opened his mouth to speak, but stopped himself. Terminal Dogma was only one of 5 facilities that housed their data. It just so happened to be that Dogma was easier to manage under his watchful eye. The terminals in America and Germany were under Seal's direct control and would be annoying to get access to. However, they still needed the resources of Senju Industries, so their alliance was still needed. Gendo would achieve his goals, and so long as this fool didn't get in his way, then he would count it to be a useful pawn. Very well, Uzumaki-san. I hope that we can get this unfortunate issue resolved, said Gendo. Ritsuko and Gendo left, leaving Naruto to his own devices. Location: Ko Town. Place: streets. Time: 1900. Issei walked down the street. He had just left Motohama's house. A lot of things had happened over the course of the last day. He had spoken to Kurama, who had only gotten permission to tell him about herself and the basics of the largest of the factions, the biblical faction, and how it was basically divided. He had spent the last day basically lost in his own world. Hell, even getting invited to Motohama's to watch Ring X Mama Vol 3, the title bout, wasn't enough to get him out of his funk. So it was a confused young man who made his way home. As he didn't notice that the streets became barren, the sound of cars and street vendors vanished. Well, I didn't think I'd get the cutie that Rainer let get away, came a voice. Issei looked up and saw that he was looking at a blonde-haired girl. A black Lolita dress with white frills, a large black bow on the front, and a green jewel embedded on the collar, white thigh-high socks, and black shoes. She also wore a large black bow on top of her hair. Who are you?" asked Issei as he took a step backwards from the girl. While he didn't understand it, his instincts were screaming at him to run. The girl smirked as she summoned a pink spear and threw it at Issei. Issei could do nothing as the spear pierced his stomach. Issei was thrown off his feet and hit the ground, couching up blood. The Lolita floated over, laughing. "I can't believe how easy that was. Rainer will be happy to know that I killed you," gloated the girl before flying away. Issei coughed as he reached out. He didn't want to die. Sure, he had seen some nice tits, but he was still a virgin. "I don't want to die," said Issei, as he began to bleed out. As Issei began to bleed out, a small circle appeared in his jacket pocket. It glowed bright red as a young woman with long red hair appeared. She looked at Issei. "Do you wish to live?" asked the woman. Issei nodded, too weak to speak. The young woman smiled. "Then be reborn as my servant and fight in my name. Become a servant for the house of Gremory." "Rias Gremory," said the young woman. "2." Issei couldn't keep his eyes open and fell into slumber. Location: Ko. Place: Hayadu. Time: 0830, Saturday. Issei's eyes shot open as he took a gasp, before sitting up. His hand went to his stomach where the spear had hit him. He knew that it wasn't a dream since Kurama had explained what she could to him. But that didn't explain why he was alive. He knew that he had died. You didn't dream the kind of pain that Issei felt. The last thing he remembered was that girl with red hair. Come back to bed, Issei, it's cold," came a sleepy voice. Issei froze hearing the voice. He moved the cover and saw the red-haired girl from yesterday, naked as the day she was born. She looked beautiful with the morning sun bathing her peach-colored skin in its warm light. Even compared to some of the models and porn stars he would spank it to, she was just on another level. Shaking his head, Issei let out a yelp and jumped out of bed, only to fall hard on his ass. The red-haired woman sat up and yawned. "I asked for a few more minutes since last night drained me, but I guess now that you're up we can talk," said the redhead. "Wait, drained you? Did we have sex last night? Because it would totally suck to forget that," said the brown-haired young man. Rias smiled before winking. "Sorry, Issei. But that's not the case. Actually, do you mind if I call you Issei?" asked the woman. "Not that I would ever mind a beautiful girl with nice tits waking up in my bed or giving me a nickname. But what the hell are you doing here? And if I remember right, you're Rias Gremory senpai," said Issei in awe of the fact that the school idol was in his freaking room. The red-haired young woman smiled. "You'd be correct, my name is Rias. Rias Gremory. As for why I'm here, my newest servant was badly hurt by a light spear, so I needed to share some of my magic with him to heal him, and the type of healing I did works best with skin-to-skin contact," said the young woman. "Servant? What, am I some kind of sex slave to you or something?" asked Issei. Rias crossed her arms under her breasts and smirked. Before Issei could ask what was so funny as her foot came up and began to fondle Issei's rapidly hardening junk. Issei moaned slightly at this. Rias was actually pretty good at using her foot. Coming up with her second foot, she used her feet in tandem to make Issei feel amazing. Rias did this for about 2 minutes, bringing Issei closer and closer to release. Issei tried to keep from coming since Rias's feet felt so damn good. 1. Fucking hell. I'm about to bust the fattest nut of my life all because of this sexy redhead, thought Issei. If I wanted to turn you into my boy toy, I could do so as easy as giving you a foot job. Under devil law, as a high-class devil, any low-class devil who is a servant of mine must follow all orders given by their master, said Rias as she stopped her foot job, just as Issei was close to coming, blue-balling him, before she got up and pulled on a lace purple-black thong. Issei groaned slightly and opened his mouth to ask something else, only for his door to be opened by his mother Haida, Miki, and Kuruma. Issei-kun, your friend Kuruma is here. She said that started Miki as she looked at her son's hard-on and the beautiful girl in her son's room. Both Issei and Kuruma looked on in shock at Rias, who just smiled. Hello, mother. I'm. You devil bitch. You dare go against my father's words, yelled Kuruma as her nails turned into claws and large wings sprouted from her back, as 2 yellow horns came out of her head and a long thin tail with a spade on the back. Oh, Kami-sama! Yelled Miki in shock. Rias ignored the split-second headache that occurred and summoned her power of destruction from both her hands. Before either girl could attack, 3 shadows appeared and held a tanto to their throats. Rias became nervous at the entrance of the shadows. Shadows were Kyoto's equivalent to the stealth force from the Bleach manga that Rias loved. The triple shadows solidified, revealing themselves a trio of young women standing at 5 foot even with slender figures, B-cup breasts with fair skin, coral eyes and blonde hair that is tied to a ponytail, each of them having blue, green, and red, wearing a black half breastplate over a sleeveless mesh bodysuit, a black and blue striped headband with the one in front of Rias having light orange scarf with flower pattern, black arm gloves with metal bracers, a light orange hakama pants and black boots, with metal plate around the shin and instep. All 3 were drop-dead gorgeous, not more so than Rias or Kuruma, but they were easily up there with some average devil bow ties. Who are you 3? Asked Rias in fear. Kuruma cursed Shadow Kunoichi. Part of my father's elites who travail throughout Japan, always on the lookout for threats to the greater Shinto/Yukai faction. And apparently a hidden guard I didn't realize I had, said Kuruma. Forgive us, Oja-sama, but that is not the case. We were in the area and felt a spike of power coming from you, said the blue-tied woman. Kuruma Oja-sama, you know that getting into a fight is forbidden by the laws of the GSY. Desecration serves our people well, said the shadow with the green hair tie. I realize that, shadow, growled Kuruma. But this bitch broke the agreement that my father warned her about. I am acting in his stance. Our names are not Shadow, we are Tia, Tina, and Tria. You have no authority to do that, Kuruma Oja-sama. Uzumaki Dano is an top-level official of the greater Shinto/Yukai faction. You are just his child, said the triplet with the red tie. Kuruma snorted, before she allowed her transformation to rescind. Miki opened her mouth, before the green-tied triplet put her palm before Miki's face. Sleep and forget this moment, said the young woman. Miki's eyes glossed over, before she fell forward and was caught by the young woman with the green tie. She put her over her shoulder and whisked her away to her bedroom. Kuruma Oja-sama, this cannot be ignored. You will accompany us to see Uzumaki Dano, said the blue-tied young woman. Very well, said Kuruma as she was grabbed by Red Tie and taken away in a shadow. I would advise against doing anything else, as when Uzumaki Dano calls you to the carpet he will expect an answer, said Blue Tie, before she too vanished. It was at that moment that Rias felt death run a playful forefinger up her spine. Location, Ko, Little Aoyama. Place, Uzumaki Manor. Time 0900 Saturday. Naruto groaned in pleasure as he lay on the table in his back room. He was naked except for a towel wrapped around his waist. Sitting on his waist rubbing his muscles was Matatabi, wearing a towel herself. They had just got out of the hot spring that was attached to Naruto's house. A home that sat up in the hills of Kuo. It had cost a few million for the large Japanese-style manor that had 2 basements, a large garage, and the hot springs that Naruto was currently. I needed this, said Naruto. A day off was just what the doctor ordered. Matatabi chuckled as she rubbed her lover's shoulders. Considering that you've been under a lot of stress lately, I can only image my love, said the Nico Demonis. I actually got messages from both Uchiha and Akasha, said Naruto. Oh. I didn't know that they had called you, said Matatabi. Uchiha and her sister are thinking of moving their den here while Akasha has found a free moment to interfere in this cold war between myself and her regent Issa Shuzen, growled Naruto. Matatabi sighed. I still can't understand why you haven't killed the man. He's caused you so much grief. Especially with little Mocha, said Matatabi. It's only because of how fragile our alliance with the vampires is that I don't kill him. The Shuzen clan commands a considerable amount of power within the covens. If I kill him, then I invite war upon Kyoto. Even as high-ranking as I am within the GS/Y, I can't drag our people into a war, said Naruto. Who would have thought that Shuzen could be so petty because he didn't get to bed Akasha before she announced herself as your wife and bargaining chip between our faction and the Dark Lord faction? Hush, let us not talk about work. Let us enjoy the day, whispered Matatabi, pressing her breast to Naruto's back. Naruto felt arousal at this. Normally Naruto didn't go a day without having his balls drained of his seed, considering that he had access to multiple women. Naruto had sex with multiple women who took his fancy, but he only ever had a few wives within the last several thousand years. The last wife he had before Akasha and Eiga was a young maiden from a village in Italy. The woman. It had been a few days since he had last had sex, and he was feeling a bit horny at the moment. Naruto turned around and smiled at Matatabi as he captured her lips in a heated kiss before his hands moved to her breasts. Matatabi moaned into her lover's mouth as her hand moved to undo the clip keeping her towel in place. Before they could get too far into their intimacy ahead of themselves, Kurumu appeared with some shadow kunoichi. Naruto sighed in slight annoyance as he stopped his makeout with Matatabi and turned to look at the trio and his child. What is going on? Asked Naruto. Papa started Kurumu, only for Naruto to raise his hand. Kuruma, as much as I want to hear your side of the story, this falls into official GS/Y business if 3 of my shadow kunoichi brought you here. So I ask again, what is going on, Tria? Said Naruto, looking at the green tie-haired young woman. Uzumaki Dano, what I tell you because I am duty-bound, said Tria. The eldest of the shadow kunoichi regaled Naruto with what had happened nearly 30 minutes ago, with Kuruma interjecting on why she did what she did. Naruto growled in the back of his throat. Take a scroll to Lucifer, Leviathan, the Gremry and Citri clans and the heiresses, explaining my displeasure. I will meet with them on Monday evening and go over just how fucked they are, yelled Naruto before he vanished in a spire of blue energy. Matatabi, Tina, Tria and Kuruma looked at the place where Naruto stood and knew that someone was in serious trouble. Location unknown. Place, top of a tower. Time unknown. On this plain there was nothing except crystal clear blue waters as far as the could see. The sun rose high in the sky, bathing the only island in its warm and powerful rays of light and life. The island itself was nothing special, several miles long and wide, protected by a barrier that would stop the occasional superstorm from doing damage. Birds could be heard chirping, a few wild dogs could be seen running in packs, and other such animals could be found. Animals thought extant in the human world lived and thrived here. The only man-made structure on the island was a single building that looked ancient, yet futuristic at the same time. It was hard to describe to an outside, as you could only truly see it with your own eyes. This was Sanctuary. Few had ever set foot on Sanctuary. The reason for this was that it was a hidden dimension. A place where humans, devils, and angels had never been. This was because Naruto had never allowed it. For Naruto felt this place was too pure for them. No matter how pure and good angels were, they stood still, held darkness in their hearts. At the top of Sanctuary, facing the rising sun, was Naruto, currently shirtless, in orange shorts with black whirlpool-like tattoos all over his body. All around him were birds and other animals that had learned to climb up the high tower, just so they could be near the beacon of nature that was Naruto. Behind him a portal opened, a swirling blue vortex of energy that sent the animals scurrying. The figure who stepped out of the portal was a young female who appeared to be in her late teens, long white hair that was pulled into 3 ponytails with large green balls securing the tails, red markings on her forehead, cheeks, shoulders and chest, a loud glowed with the divinity that the Shinto granted her, teal-green eyes that radiated kindness, a low-cut white kimono with red trimming which hangs loosely over her upper arms, exposing her the upper parts of her breasts, and open to the side where you could see her left leg exposed if she walked just right, red obi sash. The area around her eyes was painted with red makeup and even her lips were stained black to offset the pale white of her skin. Hanging from her neck was a round pendant with 9 jade beads, and High Priestess high-heeled sandals with red socks, and her sash was a paintbrush. Her weapon of choice. This woman was Amaterasu, leader of the Shinto gods and supreme leader of the greater Shinto/Yukai faction, with Naruto as her counterpart. Ama, what brings you to Sanctuary? Asked Naruto, opening his eyes. Your aura has been gone for almost a day from the correct world. I was getting worried, said Amma as she reached out as a bird landed on her hand. You know as well as anyone who had been here a day in that world is nearly a week here, said Naruto. I didn't come for a time-space lesson. You know why I'm here. The devil faction is up in arms. About the letter you sent to them, said Amma. Rias Gremory broke the treaty, barely a day after I warned her that there would be consequences for her actions. Not to mention my own child commented her own infraction to complicate matters, said Naruto. Amma sighed as she sat at the edge of the tower and leaned her head on Naruto's shoulder. To anyone who showed this would think it a romantic motion on Amma's part. There was nothing romantic about it. It was just Amma's motherly nature to comfort others. Then again, Naruto and Amma had no real attraction to each other aside from their mutual friendship. I understand you're upset, but we have to play nice with the devils. They are one of the strongest factions, said Amma. Naruto snorted. Nice my ass. Amma, I warned her not to go after Issei. I had to come here to calm Miss Lef and bleed away my excess anger, otherwise I would have raided the underworld and beat Cerzeshes into the afterlife, said Naruto. Amma frowned. We faked your death for a reason, Naruto-kun. Michael, Azazel, and Cerzeshes are not people we should antagonize, even if you could defeat all of them in 3-on-1 combat. We cannot have it known that the strongest creature to ever existence is still alive, said Amma. Naruto snorted. Don't remind me. We weakened our position significantly after I was hurt by Jehovah before the ceasefire. Who knew that God was so powerful for such an old wizard, said Naruto, flexing his right hand. It took him a year to grow it back after that fight. Considering the fact that he defeated the original Satans in 4-on-1 combat, and has been out of commission for almost 2 millennia is still befalling to many in the Divine Plains, said Amma. Naruto nodded. So do you want to talk politics with the devils or are you leaving that up to me? Asked Naruto, steering the conversation away from that particular topic. I'm going to leave it up to you. Normally I would contact the devils and speak to them about what happened, said Amma. I'm sensing a but here, said Naruto, looking at Amma. Amma nodded. There is a but. Because you are romantically involved with the queen of the offender, I'm going to let you handle the punishment, but you can't kick them out of the territory, said Amma. Naruto frowned. Even if Akeno is my lover, she has nothing to do with the business that I have with Rias or Sona, said Naruto. Amma narrowed her eyes before she rose from her seat and looked at Naruto. Naruto, you are the lord of the Kyoto Yukai faction and appointed by myself as the vice leader of the greater Shinto/Yukai alliance with myself at its head. I fought to have you in that position despite my brother Susunu's argument and personal hate of you, started Amma. Bitch mad that I kicked his ass across Japan, muttered Naruto, only to be smacked on the head by Amma's brush. I still made you my second to move past the Yokai Shinto ancient grudges despite the looming of the abysmal ones in the background, and their connection to Yukai. I allow you to do as you please because we both know that you are stronger than I am, however I still have enough sway within our faction to have your position overturned if I must, and you know what that means, said Amma. Naruto did indeed know what that meant. Amma was threatening to let the entire supernatural world in on a secret that had been guarded for close to 1,000 years, with only the vampire coven lords knowing about it as they were allies of the GS/Y faction. Now Naruto could in theory succeed from the GS/Y with Kurama and Yasaka and turn the Kyoto Yukai into their own true faction, but that had many major drawbacks that Naruto wasn't willing to press. The only true advantage and trump card that Naruto had in this situation is that Yasaka was the guardian of the ley line. The Shinto gods were not about to risk that power for anything. However, Naruto also didn't want to risk the protection that his family was offered from the GS/Y either. Probation, said Naruto after a minute or two. I will personally oversee it with Kurama acting as my agent while they are in school. They also forfeit 30% of all money they earn from contracts for the next 7 months. Amma smiled, before she kissed Naruto on the forehead. Now I think it's time you returned home. You've been gone for at least a day. Naruto nodded before he opened a portal. He stepped. Location, downtown Ko. Place, Uzumaki Kondo. Time, 1700 Sunday. Akeno sat on the couch tapping her foot impatiently. For as long as she had known Naruto, he had never given any indication that he was more than an ordinary human. He had never showed that he was older than 24, and he had never given her any reason to believe that their relationship was just him passing the time. It hurt. It hurt a lot. To think that the man that she held a deep affection for could do this to her. A portal opened and out stepped Naruto, but before he could say anything a blast of lightning hit him and sent him into the wall. Naruto barely felt but pretended he did. He had been married a number of times and knew that sometimes it was best to let his wife/girlfriend of the times/era win or else it could have consequences. I deserve that, said Naruto, shaking his head. Akeno walked up to Naruto while shedding her clothes. You deserve more than that, but tonight we're going to fuck. Not make love, not cuddle up on the couch and talk it out. We are going to fuck each other with all of our supernatural power, and in the morning we're going to talk, said Akeno, licking her lips and allowing lightning to surge through her fingers. Akeno joined Naruto on the floor as her lips crashed into his. Location: Ko Academy. Place: ORC Clubhouse. Time: 18:15 Monday. The conference room of the ORC Clubhouse was currently in use as the 7 individuals awaited the man who had asked for this meeting in the first place. This was not how Sona planned on spending her evening. Maybe with a good book, doing paperwork, or one of her rare guilty pleasures, practicing kissing with her queen. Maybe even practicing cunnilingus on each other. If you asked Sona if she enjoyed doing rather sexual things with her queen, the answer would be a hard no, but that wasn't why they were here. When it came to the overall shared reign of Ko-town, Sona was the brains and Rias was the muscle. Sona knew that while she was as strong as Rias and had more pieces, Rias's peerage was just of a better quality. So for her to get a message from Rias that the daughter of a high-ranking member of Kyoto's faction attacked her was a bit disconcerting. Especially when said member was actually the president and CEO of Senju Industries. While Senju Industries made their name in the human world as leaders in the medical field while dabbling in other forms of business, in the supernatural world they were a front for the Kyoto faction and to a lesser extent the GS/Y. Since this was dealing with things beyond their political power, it was decided that Serzex and Serafal, both of whom dropped everything they were doing to come to the defense of their little sisters. Despite how powerful Serafal and Serzex were utter ciscons. Sometimes Sona thought that they both wanted to have sex with them, which wasn't uncommon for siblings and even parents in devil families to take an immediate family members as a lover. Her own father just so happened to be her mother's cousin from the branch family of the Citri. Focus, Sona! Yelled her inner chibi. Sona Citri was a beautifully stern, bespectacled young woman standing at 5 feet 5 inches with a slim figure with B-cup breasts, black hair styled in a short bob cut, and violet eyes. She was dressed in the Ko Academy's girl's uniform, revealing her best feature, her long legs. Would normally consider herself to be the brains half of the powers that controlled Ko. She knew from her sister that the territory was only on loan as an experiment, and a sign of good faith for the alliance with the greater Shinto/Yukai faction. Standing behind her was Queen Shinra Tsubaki, a young bespectacled woman who stood at the same height as Sona. Sometimes people would often mistake them as sisters. It was actually a little flattering that people thought them siblings sometimes. But unlike her king, she had D-cup breasts with long straight black hair that extends all the way down to her knees, with split bangs, and heterochromic eyes, with a violet left eye and a light brown right eye. She wore the same uniform as Sona did. Normally Sona was the diplomat when it came to Rias's rather blunt approach to things. It was one of the reasons that Serafal was here. Sitting on her left was Sona's sister, the Satan in charge of foreign affairs, the strongest female devil. Serafal Leviathan, a title she earned through blood, tears, heartbreak, and criticism from the Devil Council. She wasn't very tall, she was even shorter than Sona herself, standing at 5 feet 2 inches, and despite her age of a few hundred if not closer to 1,000, she still looked to be in her late teens, early 20s, with knee-length black hair, tied into twin tails, and blue eyes. She wore a green blazer-like shirt with a white neckerchief, knee-length black shirt, black-heeled boots. Normally her queen would be there to assist, but she was currently working in talks with the werewolf packs of the Dark Lord factions. Because of the fact that the Citri and Gremry clans were allies because of her sister and Lord Lucifer, they decided to share the territory in the human world. A territory that was on loan to them from the greater Shinto/Yukai faction. A faction that was strong enough to give the Egyptian Paratheon pause. She knew that part of that was due to the leader of the Kyoto faction, Yasaka, the guardian of the ley line, one of the most powerful sources of magic across the realms. This thought led to Sona looking to her right of where Rias sat with Akeno standing behind her. And then to Rias's right was her brother, leader of all devils, and the strongest devil to live since Lucifer the Morning Star, Serzex Lucifer ne Gremry. Serzex is a handsome man who seems to be in his early 20s. He has shoulder-length crimson hair and blue eyes. If you asked anyone who looked at him and Rias side by side, you would swear they could pass for twins with how similar in appearance they were. And finally there was Serzex's queen, wife, as well as Serafal's former rival for the position of Leviathan, Graphia Lucifuge. Graphia stood at 5 feet 8 inches, a beautiful young woman appearing to be in her early 20s with back-length silver hair that features a long braid on each side with small blue bows at the ends, while the rest is let down, which ends in twin braids and silver eyes. Wearing a blue and white French-made outfit with long sleeves and a white-made headband over her head with red lipstick. The atmosphere was tense as the 7 sat in the room together. Normally both Surzex and Seraphol would be gushing over their sisters with their respective queens trying and most likely failing to get them back in line. However, with how serious the accusations were at the moment, it was no wonder both Satans had their game faces on. A knock sounded on the door. Butcho and Uzumaki Naruto, alongside Onibi Matatabi and Kurono Uzumaki Kuruma are here, came the voice of Rias's Rook. Enter, said Rias. The door opened, and in walked the man who had scowled Rias a number of days ago. The woman who Sona assumed was Matatabi had a briefcase in her hand. They walked to the chairs where Naruto moved the chair, allowed Kuruma to sit down, before he pushed the chair up slightly. Once seated, Matatabi took up a standing position behind Naruto. Uzumaki-sama, I welcome you here, despite these unusual circumstances, said Rias. Thank you for hosting me, Gremory-san. As much as I enjoy political machinations, I would like to get this over and done with. Matatabi opened the briefcase and removed a black paper that had golden writing on it alongside signatures at the bottom. Specifically Surzex, Seraphol, Yasaka, and Naruto. As you all know, this is the agreement to allow Gremory-sama and Sona-sama to rule over Ko, with the Kyoto faction acting as an observer to the GS/Y to allow you here. Part of that agreement is that anyone who is unaware of the supernatural isn't allowed to be in your peerage. That may be the case, but from what I understand, Issei-sen was saved by Uzumaki-sama and told of the supernatural by his daughter, meaning that he fell into this criteria, said Sona. It would be if not for the fact that Issei's father Goro works directly for me as a member of Senju Industries' HR department. Since Senju Industries is an extension of the Kyoto faction, all personnel who are employed by Senju Industries are protected by under said treaty, said Naruto. The dead do not have the same rights as those who are alive, said Seraphol. Issei wasn't dead when Rias turned him into a servant, said Naruto. What do you mean he wasn't dead? His eyes were closed and blood was all over the place, said Rias, allowing her passion and arrogance to shine though. My apologies, Gremory. Allow me to explain. In Kyoto, just like the Devil faction, we have separate classifications for our personnel. Actually, we would be closer to an RPG system of classes. I would be considered assassin and my subclass is censor, said Naruto. Censor? Asked Surzex with narrowed eyes. I didn't know the demon shinobi was a censor. Naruto smirked at Graphia, who blushed. I knew about it, Lucifer-sama, said Graphia. Seraphol turned and glared at her former rival. And you never said anything about one of our strongest enemies at the time? Asked Seraphol. To be fair, she couldn't say anything, even if she could. I took a page out of an old enemy of my grandfather's to ensure the silence of all those in the old Satan faction. Of course, there are other secrets that Graphia kept from me, said Naruto. Surzex narrowed his eyes. If you're implying that you used my wife as a SL-, started Surzex. Naruto barked out a laugh. Nothing of the sort. Yes, I did use to have sex with Kateria Leviathan in between battles and missions. I did make a pass at Graphia, but she turned me down. Surzex-sama, we are not here to revisit the past, we are here to talk about what happened between Rias-sama and Kuruma-sama, said Akeno. You are correct, Akeno-chan. I'd rather not have to kill a partner of ours, said Surzex, glaring at Naruto. 932 attempts, with half of those being in tandem with either Seraphol or Ajuka. And a further quarter of those being all three of you taking me on, said Naruto. Gentlemen, please, that's enough, said Seraphol, despite she herself remembering the broken bones that Naruto had left her with during the war. You're right. Let us move on to the next topic. Kuruma, by report of your own, shadows attacked Rias, said Surzex. I was acting in place of my father, yelled Kuruma, rising to her feet, only for Naruto to grip her shoulder and ease her back into her seat. So she is an agent of yours? Asked Seraphol. Kuruma does not speak for me. While she is my child, she is not an official of Kyoto or the GS/Y. She was doing what she thought was right, said Naruto. I believe that it would be good for her to spend some time under me as one of my servants, said Rias. That's not happening. There were mistakes all around here, but you still disobeyed an official of the GS/Y in Kyoto. I think I have a solution that all involved would agree with, said Naruto. What is it, Uzumaki-sama? Asked Graphia. For starters, since Gremory-san and Citri-san share this territory, they are both on probation. Also, Rias is not allowed to speak to Issei for a week. I wish I could impose harsher punishment, but seeing as both girls are learning how to be rulers, I've decided to help them with the political aspect of their leading, said Naruto. That's not far. Issei is my servant now and falls under the laws of Devil Society, said Rias. A society he doesn't know the rules of yet. Despite how you devils are more civilized than you once were, several among you still comment atrocities just because you can. Riser Phoenix for one. He's lived for over 100 years, participated in the attack of a Nico village and… Enough! Yelled Surzex. To blatantly accuse my people of doing something like that in front of me, I'll annihilate you. 1. Naruto smirked. So some semblance of the Crimson King of Destruction remains. It would be a pleasure to beat you within an inch of your life. Both men stared at each other before a burst of static was heard where Naruto was. Surzex vanished in a blur of motion. Serafal, Matatabi, and Graphia all sighed. Before they rose to their feet and left the room. Everyone else was confused before they heard it. Sonic booms. Following the elder women, they rushed outside. Once outside, Sona's eyes widened. Naruto and Surzex were in the air with Naruto holding a black rod in his hand while Surzex held a sword made of the power of destruction, the power of the Beal clan. Naruto charged at Surzex and stacked with a slash. Surzex blocked the attack and much to the shock of all of the younger girls the two weapons shattered. Naruto didn't let up and did a flip into an axe kick that forced Surzex to block with his arms. Surzex uncrossed his arms and grabbed Naruto's leg before throwing him at the ground as he summoned an orb of destruction. That's my brother's signature move, yelled Rias, having seen the attack. She had based her own super attack off of this move. Kurumu snorted, making the others look at her. Please. Papa isn't going to let some knockoff take him out. Knock off. You bastard, you're still using that imitation Rasengan? Asked Naruto as he held up his right hand and summoned a blue Rasengan. The duo vanished. The girls looked around for them, before Matatabi, Serafal, and Graphia put up a barrier over them as an explosion appeared above him. Black and blue lightning appeared all around, before a figure fell from the sky and created a crater in the ground. The woman lowered the barrier to see Surzex laying in the crater. His cape in tatters as was his suit. Naruto came from the sky and landed on the ground in front of Surzex. I win, said Naruto. What the hell was that? Asked Rias in a rather unladylike manner that got her a head smack from her sister-in-law. That, my dear, is the politics of fists, said Naruto as he ripped off his damaged shirt, making Akeno lick her lips, Tsubaki and Sona blush, and Matatabi think of all the things that she was going to do to those abs. Men, said the three older women. Fine, you win, although I think that taking Issei from Rias for a week is too much, said Surzex, getting up and rubbing his head. Consider it a timeout. I don't plan on teaching Issei a thing since Rias is his master, speaking of which he better be trained correctly, said Naruto, looking at Rias. After a few moments of hashing out lesser details, Surzex, Serafal, and Graphia leave. Rias glared at Naruto for a second, before she and Akeno left. Once everyone left except the student council members and Naruto, Sona rose from her seat. Tsubaki looked at her master with a raised eyebrow at this. Out of everyone who knew Sona, then it would be Tsubaki. Tsubaki, like all queens, were to their king Sona's right-hand woman and advisor. More than that, she was privy to intimate knowledge and details that Sona would rather keep quiet about. For instance, while she was embarrassed to buy her sister, she owned several cosplay outfits that came from her sister's television show, Magical Girl Levi Tan. Tsubaki had seen her best friend at her most vulnerable. She knew better than anyone how hard Sona worked to prove herself to not only her family, but the other pillar families, that she could run the house of Citri without a husband. Sona had been pledged to the third son of the Shax clan who would take the Citri name upon marriage. At 12 years old, Sona challenged him to a battle of wits in a game of chess. Sona defeated him with ease and even told all devils that only someone who could defeat her in chess would be worthy of her hand in marriage. Several had come to try their luck at her hand. All had lost. Tsubaki didn't remember the first time she and Sona had played together, but it became quite a normal thing between them after each defeat of a suitor. Of course, as her queen, she was obligated to advise and take care of Sona. Excuse me, Uzumaki-sama, said Sona. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. You may call me Naruto Citri-san. Despite what just happened, I'm not so high up on formalities that I'm going to force you to call me Sama or by my last name, said Naruto. Sona chuckled. If you insist on being called Naruto, then please call me Sona. As you said, formalities are a bit of a chore, said Sona. Indeed. What did you want to talk about, Sona-chan? Asked Naruto. Sona nodded before she bowed slightly. I would like to apologize to you, Naruto-san. As co-leader of this territory, it is part of my duty to police Rias in all matters that would break the treaty. The same goes to her, said Sona. It's fine, Sona-chan, said Naruto. Still, I insist that you join me for coffee and to talk about the future of Ko and what you expect from me, said Sona, giving Naruto a small smile. Naruto looked at Sona, before he smiled at her. I have no problems with that, Sona-san. How about we have coffee Saturday, said Naruto. Sona lifted her hand out to Naruto. That sounds lovely, Naruto-san. Naruto took Sona's hand and kissed the back of it. The Citri heiress had to fight the reddening of her cheeks. I'll see you Saturday, say 10 o'clock in the park, Sona-san, said Naruto. Sona smiled. I look forward to spending a day together, Naruto-san, said Sona. Naruto vanished with his signature static sound, with Matatabi creating a portal that she and Kurumu. Location: Ko Entertainment District. Place: Street. Time: 1800 Friday. Kurumu and Issei walked down the street away from a karaoke bar that they had been at with a Motohama, Matsuda, Akiya, and a girl that Matsuda had managed to save from a group of thugs. Matsuda and Motohama had thought it a typical high school mixed was in reality a way for Kurumu to keep an eye on Issei. Rias was told by Naruto that she couldn't see Issei for a week, mostly to give him a chance to really adjust to the new life that he was going to lead. Kurumu watched as Issei smiled and laughed, talking about how the girls had been so chill, and Kurumu had even convinced the other girls to do a little lap dance and make out session with the other two guys. With a little help from her charm, she had even made out with Issei so that he wouldn't feel left out. Besides, Issei was far from a bad kisser in Kurumu's eyes, and she had met plenty. Not to mention that he was cute. Kurumu shook her head to focus herself. Currently she was on duty. It was her punishment for attacking Rias. It was actually a pretty common. Kurumu was currently steaming on the inside as she kept glancing at Issei. Over the last week since the meeting between her father and the Satans, things had been tense. Or at least things with Rias's group have been tense. Kaneko was no longer talking to her, or at least giving her the cold shoulder. And while she hadn't really spoken to Akeno yet, she was giving her glares. That was more due to not actually getting to meet Akeno one-on-one. As the duo walked, Kurumu felt a spike of killing intent. She looked around for the direction of the killing intent and saw it. It was a middle-aged looking man with short black hair and dark blue eyes, pale gray trench coat over a white dress shirt with a matching ascot, black pants and shoes, a pair of black gloves, and a black fedora. Here I was out for a midnight stroll and I find a succubus and a devil out on a date, said the man, putting a hand on his hat. Who are you? Asked Kurumu. Me. My name is Danasik, said the man, revealing his black wings. You are trespassing on GS/Y territory, fallen, spat Kurumu. Danasik looked at Kurumu with a smirk. From my research, this is the territory of the Citri heiress and the Gremory heiress. Of course, a slut such as yourself is a nice bonus, said Danasik. Kurumu stiffened hearing this. If he knew which devils were in charge, then he was here for one reason. Issei, run! Yelled Kurumu as she charged at Danasik and allowed her claws out, only for Danasik to jump upwards slightly and kick Kurumu in her face, sending her flying backwards. Kurumu hit a roadside tree and lay there unconscious. Kurumu-chan! Yelled Issei, before he glared at Danasik. He charged at the large man with his fist pulled back and began to throw wild punches. Danasik backed away, making Issei miss each punch. Danasik grabbed Issei by his arm and yanked it upwards, before throwing Issei into a car. Issei bounced off the car and coughed up blood. Issei got up and looked at a pipe that was on the ground next to him. Picking it up, he charged at Danasek and swung it at him. Danasek moved backward and smirked, before he held out his hand and summoned a spear of light that was blue and thrust it at Issei. Issei managed to back away just in time, but was still blasted backwards as his shirt and the surface area of his chest was hit with a second-degree burn. Issei rolled on the ground, clutching his chest in pain. He looked at Danasek with a glare. Bastard! Growled Issei. Danasek laughed. Don't blame me, kid. You picked up a pipe, so I summoned my spear. I would have been happy to beat you to death with my fists. Once I'm done with you, I plan on taking my time with that succubus. Been a few years since I fucked one stupid, said the twisted fallen angel. Issei looked at Danasek with a glare that made the hardened veteran flinch. Issei clutched his left fist and rose to his feet. His fit glowed red before a light burst from his arm. Danasek was forced to cover his eyes before the light died down. Once the light was gone, it revealed a red, armored bracer with yellow accents and a green jewel on top of the palm area. The fingers aren't covered on Issei's arm. All this time we were afraid of a, twice critical, snorted Danasek. You do not take what is mine, yelled Issei as he pulled his fist back and threw it forward. The blow hit Danasek and launched him several meters away from Issei, as well as releasing some red energy. Once he hit the ground, he lay still for a moment as Issei panted. Danasek rose to his feet and turned to Issei. He didn't have any anger or hate in his eyes, but he was smiling. Danasek wiped his mouth of the blood that was there. Damn kid, that was a good hit. If you had a little more strength or technique, then you could have broken my jaw. It's clear to me you've never been in a fight. Funny how I managed to get a combat virgin with such a weak gear. Issei got into a basic boxing stance that almost everyone knew as he prepared to fight for not only his life, but Kuruma's. Danasik summoned another spear. That's enough, yelled a familiar voice. Issei looked to where the voice had come from to see Rias standing there, holding out her hand with a ball of destruction in her hand. Blood-red hair and black aura. Heiress of Gremory. You have me at a disadvantage as I do not know who you are, said Rias. My name is of no consequence to you, woman, said Danasik. Except you attacked the ruler of this territory. Someone who I have to teach more about politics, said another voice. Issei looked up to see Naruto, who held Kuruma in his arms bridal style. Great, another devil, said Danasik. Naruto snorted. I'm no devil. I'm a yokai. Naruto vanished without a sound and reappeared, kicking Danasik on his right side. The force of Naruto blow crushed Danasik's right arm and some of his ribs as he went flying into the air. Danasik gripped his shattered ribs as he glared at Naruto. 2. I underestimated you. Who are you? Asked Danasik. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I am the Lord of Kyoto and a member of the Greater Shinto/Yukai Council. I am not someone you want to cross. I see. Well then, Lord Uzumaki, I guess it's time for me to leave, said Danasik. Naruto glared at him. As if I'd left you leave after attacking my child, yelled Naruto. Let him go, Uzumaki-san, said Rias. Naruto turned to Rias with a raised eyebrow. As much as he wanted to rebuttal, he had agreed that he would allow Rias and Sona to make mistakes and be there as a sort of safety net. The only reason he had agreed to this was because he once considered Grafia a dear comrade. Very well. However, if he gives us any problems in the future, it's you who will clean up the mess, said Naruto. Rias nodded as Danasik took off into the night. She knew that it might seem counterproductive to allow an enemy to leave, but she needed him to deliver a message to their leader. A fight was coming and Rias was going to bring that fight. Location: Ko Town. Place: abandoned church basement. Time: 0000 Saturday. The doors to the basement were thrown open as Rainier ran into the room. Danasik! Yelled Rainier in worry for her comrade. Middle looked away from her vigil over the man who lay in the bed, half dead from his scuffle with a yokai of some level of strength. At least according to Danasik, the man had been at least as strong as a cadre. Rainier looked at Danasik's half-broken body as Middle secured his arm in a sling, and his midsection was heavily bandaged. Whoever had hurt him was strong. While fallen angels were durable and had a stronger healing factor than humans, it would take some time to heal, more time than she would have liked. He had returned to their hideout while she had been out scouting Ko, or rather scouting out the Gremory/Citri fortress known as Ko Academy. While it didn't seem like it, they had some impressive defenses that would make it suicide to attack them there. No, Rainier was going to bid her time until she could complete her mission, her goals. The goals that her father was too soft to strive for. What happened? Asked Rainier as she walked over to his bedside. Danasik tried to rise from his position on the bed. Easy, Dana. You're not fit to move around just yet, said Middle. Ever the worrywart, that girl, thought Rainier with a small smile. While Kalawarna and Danasik were the oldest of their group and pure-blooded fallen angels, Middle, much like Rainier, was merely a half-blood fallen angel. She was much younger than all of them at only 70 years old. But even so, Rainier considered her a dear friend and comrade. Danasik laid back down on the bed and looked at the ceiling. I'll live, but that guy who hit me. He was holding back a lot of power. Even though I had apparently hurt his kid, said Danasik. Held back? Asked Rainier. Yeah. That blonde bastard's kick was strong enough to shatter half my ribs and arm, but for some reason he didn't kill me, said Danasik. Rainier took a seat and put a hand in her head. Why? That monster spared me when we met, and he didn't kill you. It makes no sense to me. Rainier. Maybe he's just waiting and playing a game of cat and mouse with us, said Midlet, clenching her teeth. I doubt it, said Kalawarna, walking into the room with a backpack. Where have you been, Kala? Asked Danasik, talking to his old friend. Kalawarna reached into the bag that she had and removed a rather old book. I was checking up on our prize. She'll be arriving by tomorrow. But I also went ahead and went to HQ and gathered information on the man who you met. What did you find out about him? Asked Rainier. He's an official in Kyoto. No bearing on his rank, but it's speculated by the cadre that he's the number 3 in Kyoto after Yasaka and her husband Kurama. He's also known as the Demon Shinobi, leader of a mercenary band that fought with the old Satan faction. Other than that, he's been head of the company Senju Industries for about 200 years. No wonder he was able to nearly kill me in one shot. If he's the number 3 of Kyoto, then he's as powerful as Lord Azazel, said Danasik, thanking their father that he wasn't killed. Why would a member of Kyoto be helping the devils? Asked Millet. Kalawaner put a hand on her chin. She was a foreign affairs field agent with the Gigori. Japan is exclusively Yukai and Shinto territory. Rumors have been floating around for at least a decade that the devils wanted to have a foothold in Japan. If they have a tentative alliance, then it would make sense that a member of Kyoto would be here to oversee them and make sure that they aren't doing anything that would go against their alliance, or treaty if there is one, said Kalawarner. Rainer bit her lip. If those devils had someone of that caliber on their side, then they would be dead. Not even her father could save her since this operation was off the books. Sure, they had been told to gather information on the dormant sacred gear user Haidu Issei, and report back their findings. A cadre took the orders one step further and told Rainer to kill Issei. Her team was in danger if they encountered that man again. We have day before our ritual target arrives and another week before we can do the transfer ritual. We just need to stay out of that man's scope. Once we complete the ritual, we need to leave this area and destroy any evidence that we were here, said Rainer. The others nodded to Rainer. Danasik. Location, Ko Town. Place, Park Fountain. Time, 10:30 Saturday. Naruto stood by the fountain dressed in rather casual attire compared to what he would normally wear when he had to be seen in public. He wore a white shirt with the kanji for 10 on the front, an orange jacket with tiger stripes, fitted blue jean pants, and black boots. On his right wrist was a sports watch, and around his neck were 10 black beads and a Shinto pendant. Naruto let out a yawn as he pulled out his phone. He had arrived about 15 minutes ago, but he had been up for over 2 hours. And that was mostly due to Matatabi and Kurumu not letting leave the house with anything just thrown on. They spent 45 minutes going through his wardrobe to find something that was suitable for a date with the heiress of the Citri clan. Another thing that contributed to his tiredness was the after-action meeting he had with Rias, Issei, and a slightly concussed Kuruma had spent the next 20 minutes discussing what had happened. Naruto and Rias had examined the twice critical. Of course, Naruto knew exactly what it was. It wasn't a twice critical. No, it was the gear that all twice critical had been modeled after. It was the Longinus tier boosted gear. A mid-tier god-killing weapon. Over the course of his long life, Naruto had met, fought, and even at one point married a user of said gear. Naruto didn't tell Issei about his new power. Naruto considered that it was Issei's burden to make himself stronger. Many eras of dimension, and several wars ago, Naruto's own burden at the time forced him to grow and become stronger, as the situation called for it. He also knew that Rias knew about the gear. Why she didn't tell him about it, as she was Issei's master, was beyond him. While she wanted to talk more about it, Naruto told Rias that he had no desire to talk to her about whatever it was that she wanted to talk about. Of course, Naruto would advise her, but he wasn't going to get involved any more than he already was. Then again, considering what he had already done, he was sure that he would be fighting more fallen angels soon. Naruto allowed both Rias and Issei to stay over at his house that night. Naruto himself had spent the rest of the night until about 3 in the morning doing paperwork that he had neglected for the last 5 years. "Sorry I'm late, Naruto-san," said Sona. Naruto looked up and smiled as he saw Sona. She wore an off-shoulder light gray long-sleeve shirt, a dark gray plaid skirt, and black low-quarter heels. On her left wrist was a silver chain bracelet, and around her neck was a pendant with her family crest on it. "It's fine, Sona-san. You look lovely, by the way," said Naruto. Sona smiled. "Thank you. I know that you clean up well thanks to seeing you in a suit, but had I not known any better I would think you a college playboy trying to get into the pants of a high school girl," said Sona, putting a hand on her face and cocking her hip. Naruto chuckled. "Cut me some slack, Sona-san. If I really wanted to get into your pants, I would," said Naruto, winking at her. Sona gave a small chuckle. "Sorry, Naruto-san, but I for one don't believe in sex without love. It's the reason why I'm no longer inside of an arranged marriage," said Sona. Naruto smiled. "This is a conversation to have over coffee," said Naruto, holding out his arm. The Citri heiress took her date's arm. "Lead the way, Naruto-san," said Sona. The duo found themselves at a cafe not far from the fountain, and were seated. They both ordered their coffee, or in Sona's case tea, and a small something to eat. As they ate, they made small talk, mostly about Sona and her schoolwork or Naruto's current business in Ko. As they spoke, Sona was analyzing every word Naruto said. Every careful mention. Sona knew that one-day outing wasn't going to be enough to get to truly know the man before her. She would have to get him to go out more. Maybe ask Tsubaki for advice in the future? All Sona truly knew was that hanging out with Naruto would be fun. After the duo finished their coffee and cakes, they went out, and just enjoyed each other's company. They did regular couple things. Naruto took Sona to a movie and then to a small restaurant to eat, where they resumed their conversation. Finally they went and did some shopping. Both had money, but Naruto insisted on paying for anything Sona wanted. Aside from a dress or two that were both in the 100 or so range, she didn't spend a lot of money. Despite trying on several outfits to entice Naruto. What? She was still a devil. She still liked the finer things in life. A few hours later, Naruto and Sona stopped their walk as they saw Issei and a girl walking. A pretty young girl with long blonde hair flowing all the way down to her back, with split bangs over her forehead and a single strand sticking out from the top and sloping backward, and green eyes. Standing at 5 feet 1 inch with a petite body frame and B-cup breasts, wearing a dark teal nun outfit with light blue accents, a white veil over her head with light blue accents, a brown satchel slung on her right hip, and brown boots with black straps in an X-shaped pattern. She also wore a silver cross necklace around her neck. Sona seized up slightly. Before was a nun. A servant of the god and by extension the church. The natural enemies to devils. Nuns and priests for generations have gone after maleficent spirits and devils who caused harm to regular humans. In tales they had even slain devils with weapons created by God. The sacred gears. The divine items that allowed God's children to level the playing field, so to speak. Sona didn't know if she feared this girl before her or not, but if she was in code, then Rias would have to be made aware that her newest piece had spoken with the servant of God. Naruto felt Sona stiffen next to him, and he knew why. While he wasn't an enemy of the church per se, he wasn't exactly the biggest fan of them either. Thanks to Naruto's negative emotion sensing, he could feel someone's negativity no matter what. While she didn't show it, Sona had her own negative emotions. Actually, all devils had negative emotions, regardless of how nice they were. The girl before him, however, Naruto couldn't feel any negative emotions in her. Not a drop. She was pure. Nothing in this world had ever tainted her. No matter how bad. Issei, said Naruto. Oh, Uzumaki-san, oh crap. Prez, what are you doing with Uzumaki-san? Yelped Issei. Sona smiled at Issei with a look that told of pain to come. Hayata-san, I'm here speaking with a business partner of one of my family's major import businesses since my sister couldn't make it here. I hope that you are doing nothing that is unbecoming of a student of Ko Academy, said Sona. Issei took a step back and shook his head, while holding his hands up. No way, Prez. I've been on my best behavior, said Issei. The nun looked between Issei, Sona, and Naruto with a confused look on her face. Naruto looked at her and realized that they had switched to Japanese. She most likely only understood English, Italian, and Latin. I'm sorry about that, miss. We didn't mean to be rude, said Naruto in perfect Italian. The girl smiled and shook her head in the negative. It's fine, sir. I understand that not everyone speaks the same language as me. I'm just luckily Mr. Issei was able to help me out, said the girl. Naruto chuckled. Mr. Issei. Isn't he a little young to be called Mr.? Asked Naruto. The girl shook her head. My upbringing with the church taught to me always treat everyone kindly. Speaking of which, my name is Asia, sir. Asia Argento, said the girl, sticking out her hand. Naruto smiled. My name is Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto. It's a pleasure to meet you, Asia-chan, said Naruto as he took her hand. As Naruto took her hand, a spark jumped between them. A familial connection. A blood connection. Father? Asked Asia in confusion, elation, and fear. Naruto looked at Asia and uttered only one word. Fuck. Sona and Issei looked at each other in surprise. Location, Germany. Place, Wetterstein Mountains. Time, 1400, May 1866. A duo stood outside of a small wooden cabin that had the space cleared for several hundred meters in all directions. A light rain peppered the area. The duo had lived inside of this area for several years. It was more because they wanted to live a life of peace and happiness. Away from the ravages of battle. Battles fought between not only humans, but those within the supernatural planes. This was due to the fact of who these two individuals were. The male of the duo was a member of the Kyoto Yukai faction. In fact, he is their leader, but because he didn't like sitting in one place. Even though he would spend majority of his time in Japan fighting against the other Yukai clans and Shinto gods and their apostles. In the man's arms was a babe of no more than 6 months old. The woman by his side was a beautiful woman with long wavy blonde hair with narrowed light green eyes, standing at 5 feet 7 inches DD cup breasts, that not only did her husband love, but she used to feed her child. A floor-length purple dress with a slit up the left leg, white high heels, on her left arm was a red gauntlet that looked like a dragon's claw with a green gem in the center. On her right side was a rapier. Elsa, you don't have to do this, said the blonde-haired man. Her husband of 5 years. Uzumaki Naruto. She had known for years the true identity of her husband. She knew that he had several children or great descendants across the globe. None had his power, but then again their own child didn't have any of their powers either. My love, I know that you believe that, but this is destiny, said Elsa. Fuck destiny. I defied destiny and made it my bitch. There is no reason for you to bow down and fight. Think about our child, Elsa. I'll fight in your place. I'll kill the white dragon in your place, growled Naruto. Elsa smiled at Naruto, before walking up to him and their child. She placed a tender hand on Naruto's whiskered cheek, before kissing him. A kiss that told him all the things that she felt without using her words. Once she pulled her lips from her husband's, she then looked down at her son and kissed his forehead. I am human, Naruto. Even with Drig enhancing my life force and body, I will live to probably only live double 100. A mere blink of the eye for you. Every child you have had with a human woman has been a human. And while you did have a child with a demon, that child too was barely anything as powerful as its mother. Naruto, you were able to defy fate because you are special. I am a slave to my fate as the Red Dragon Empresses of my generation. 1. For what it's worth, I'm sorry for the fate that I have doomed her to, came a masculine voice from the gauntlet. Naruto took a breath. When I beat you and Albion within an inch of your lives before the Great War, I thought that I was done with your petty fighting, but that was my mistake. A dragon cares about only 2 things: their treasure and their desire for battle. I can no more judge you for your nature than that of a kitsen's, said Naruto. Red Dragon! Yelled a voice. Both Naruto and Elsa looked up into the as the warm midday sky shifted from blue to purple as a barrier went up around the area. A subsonic boom was heard as a figure appeared in the sky several meters above them. It was a French officer's naval wear, long black hair, a pencil mustache, and a pair of shining blue wings. On his side was a French naval cutlass. It took some time, but I finally found you, Red Dragon Emperor, said the man, drawing his cutlass and pointing it at Elsa. Naruto felt his aura flare as his eyes turned purple. A blast of demonic chakra flowed out of his body and sent the WD flying backward in the air. Naruto went to take a step forward before Elsa placed her hand in front of her lover. The blonde looked at Elsa, before resigning. Come back to us, said Naruto. Elsa smiled, before turning back to her fated rival. White Dragon Emperor! Before we do battle, tell me your name. I am Countess Elsa Uzumaki ne Schlitz, yelled Elsa. The Frenchman nodded. My name is Jean-Louis Chauve. I can only assume that the demon is your husband, said Jean-Louis. Yes, he is, but you are not here for my husband. You are here for me, said Elsa, drawing her rapier. Jean-Louis nodded. As is the intertwined fates of the red and white ones. Worry not, Red Dragon. Your husband and child have nothing to fear from me once I defeat you. I will give you a moment to say goodbye to your lover and child. Elsa turned to Naruto and smiled. Mein Hers, mean Welt. Ich komm auf Fuke Bade Zurich. Boosted gear balance brake, scale mail juggernaut drive. Jean smiled. Bravo, madam, J. Salvatore courage. Divine dividing balance brake. Scale mail, juggernaut drive, yelled Jean. The duel would fly off and begin their duel to the death. A duel where Naruto and his young son would never see Elsa again. Location, Ko Town. Place, downtown area. Time, 14:30 Saturday. As Asia took the man's hand and felt a jolt between them, there was no pain in the act itself. Not only a familiarity that could only come from a person who shared her blood. The priests and senior nuns at the church would often tell her that while God was her spiritual father, she had an earthly father out there, and she would know him because their connection would be instant and powerful. Only someone with love for God and powerful genes could sire a saint such as Asia. It appeared that they had been half right. Father? Asked Asia in shock, confusion, and happiness. Naruto took a closer look at Asia. Blonde hair and green eyes. Not light green, but of a darker verity. While it was faint, he felt it when he shook her hand. A chakra network and draconian energy. A weak chakra network that had never seen use, but it was there. Fuck, said Naruto. Daughter? Asked Sona and Issei. Naruto rubbed his head. He knew that Asia was the child of his child he had with Elsha. She's not my daughter. At least not in the way you think she is. She's technically my great many times descendant. Although the familial power is there. Probably because of my own huge mana/chakra reserves in combination to who her ancestors were as well as who her mother and father are, it jump-started her own powers, said Naruto as he ran a hand through his head. Sona crossed her arms. That is quite irresponsible of you, Naruto-san. Not keeping track of all your descendants, said Sona. Naruto groaned. Cut me some slack, Sona-san. I'm older than most beings in this world, still look like I'm 24 and have to act like a man-child who had more money than he knows what to do with, and have a new woman on my arm every week like I'm Tony Stark or Bruce Wayne. Besides, most of my dependents are humans who never managed to unlock any form of energy manipulation. Asia is honestly the first one to do so in over 700 years. You try keeping track of over 2,000 alive descents that you know of. If I had known about Asia, I would have taken her from those brainwashers at the Vatican. Sona looked at Naruto. I didn't know that you were that old, said Sona. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. You don't pick up a moniker like strongest creature alive without tangling with the biblical god once or twice, said Naruto. Good point, although I'm curious to the number of lovers you actually have though, said Sona crossing her arms under her chest. I'm currently married to 2 women. An arch-succubus and a political marriage to the Grand Countess of all vampires. The only 2 serious lovers I currently have outside of them are Akeno and my secretary Matatabi, said Naruto with a shrug. Naruto gave this information freely to Sona, despite the fact he knew she was fishing for it. It wasn't uncommon for supernatural beings of great power to have multiple lovers or even harems. Naruto was not an exception to this rule. Over the last, honestly, he couldn't really remember the amount of time as it had started to blend together with periods of time with nothing happening. He had taken hundreds if not thousands of human lovers with a handful of goddesses, demons, devils, monsters, and the like sprinkled in between. He, Kurama, Yasaka, and Matatabi had tried and even had foursome sex back in the day. That was more due to them being bored and Yasaka and Matatabi wanting to trade lovers from time to time or have some really kinky sex, considering Matatabi and Kurama were basically siblings. 2. So what's the plan? Asked Issei. Naruto and Sona turned and looked at Issei and Asia. Why are you here, Asia? There hasn't been an active church here in well over 10 years? Asked Naruto. Oh. I was assigned here to be the local by the Vatican bishop's father, said Asia nervously. Naruto narrowed his eyes. He felt the heartbreak in her words. Besides, if she wanted to call him father, then he was going to treat her like one of his children. Rule 1, Asia, don't lie to me. You won't like the consequences, said Naruto with steel in his voice. Asia quickly nodded. Of course, father. I won't do it again. The truth is I was excommunicated from the church for healing a devil who had been attacked and gravely injured, said Asia, lowering her head. Naruto narrowed his eyes. A devil who was healed by a holy medium. If it was the rumored holy maiden snatcher, then Naruto would have to be on guard. Naruto put on a smile and placed a hand on Asia's head. Well, you don't have to worry, Asia-chan, you can come and stay with me, said Naruto. Asia looked up at Naruto. Really? Really, said Naruto. I'll even allow you to go to school and hang out with Issei. Asia liked the sound of that. Before she blushed. See, can I keep calling you father? I've never had a father figure before, unless you count the various priests that came and went, asked Asia. Naruto smiled. You can call me whatever you want, Asia-chan, said Naruto before turning to Sona. I'm sorry to cut our date short, Sona-san, but I have to get Asia set up for school, as well as clothes and stuff. Sona smiled. It's fine. I'll take care of her paperwork personally. Since my father is a member of the board, it won't take a lot for me to do it. Also, our next date, you're taking me to a chess tournament, said Sona as she walked up to Naruto and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Damn it! Uzumaki-san got kissed by Prez, groaned Issei. Asia frowned at this. Father, you shouldn't do such incident things outside of marriage, as she began to hit him on his chest. Sona chuckled and turned to leave. She had found quite the interesting suitor. However, it wasn't a matter of strength with her, but smarts. Then again, he was a member of Kyoto's ruling council. Location, Ko Town. Place, Uzumaki Manor. Time, 1600 Saturday. Oh, my big sis is so cute, yelled Kuruma as she hugged Asia and rubbed her face against hers. Asia blushed. Kuruma-san, please. Kuruma pulled away and grabbed Asia by her cheeks and gave them a pull. It's Kurune-chan. Asia waved her hands. Kurune, it hurts, yelped Asia. Naruto had taken her shopping and quickly brought her clothes different from her nun outfit. Naruto and Matatabi both laughed at the two girls, before Matatabi gave Kuruma a small chop to the head, making her stop. Alright, that's enough, Kuruma-chan. Asia-chan is still new to all of this. You have to give her a chance to get used to it, said Matatabi. Kuruma stuck her tongue out at Matatabi only for the cat demon to grab her tongue and give it a squeeze, making Kuruma yell in pain. Asia watched all of this with a confused, yet content look on her face. For a long time, she always felt like something was missing in her life. Maybe it had to do with the fact that she was put on such a high pedestal at the age of 6 years old, when Twilight Healing had waited because she wanted to heal a baby bird. For a long time, she felt alone. Isolated from the other children. Made to memorize scriptures at dawn with harsh punishment if she failed to memorize them, and then made to help the people of the city and surrounding villages. But only the head bishop told Asia who she could and could not heal. It honestly drove her mad at times, as all the scriptures and teachings told her that helping people was always God's will. If he gave her the blessing of Twilight Healing, then he wanted her to help people. Then it had all come crashing down when she healed a devil who had been hurt. A hand on her shoulder brought her out of her thoughts, and she looked at her ancestral father. Or at least that's what he claimed. His hands were warm and soft, unlike the rough and cold hands of the priests and elder nuns. His smile was kind and loving, unlike the cold and distant frowns on the faces of the archbishop. His words brought comfort and joy, while the words of the priests often brought doubt and pain. Even though she had known her ancestral father for less than an afternoon, she felt a powerful connection with man. This man was her father? Said the blonde-haired girl. Yes, Asia-chan? Can we have pasta for dinner? Asked Asia. Naruto gave her a wide grin. Allow me to introduce you to the wonders of ramen, my dear child, chuckled the strongest creature alive. Asia titled her head. What is ramen? Asked Asia. Location, Ko Town. Place, Senju Industriers. Time, 1800 Friday. Naruto yawned in boredom as Gendo spoke about projections and costs that needed to be factored into the next quarter. Naruto wasn't a fool though. 70% of the projected losses were due to Gendo and Seal's Project Alliance and movement of sensitive equipment to Geo Front 2, an off-site center that could be found within a building that was owned by Senju Industries' Tokyo division. No, his major thoughts were with the last week and his newest child. Asia was kinda a breath of fresh air with the way she was. She oftentimes could be found cleaning the house or studying the Bible, despite Naruto having a staff of cleaners that came to the house once a week. She also took to calling Matatabi mother, as she thought that she was Naruto's wife. A fact that neither of them corrected, but it would have to happen before she met Naruto's official wives and learned that Akeno was Naruto's lover. Asia and Kuruma had also become quite close. Kuruma could be a pervert, while all succubi were perverts. Kuruma had made it her personal mission to corrupt. He would have to handle them sooner or later, and putting it off any longer would be foolish. Naruto pulled out his cell phone and looked at the message from Rias. Rias, Uzumaki-sama, come to the ORC. We have an emergency situation on our hands. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this message. Before he quickly replied. Naruto, I'll be there in a moment. While he and Rias had their differences, they had managed to work together with Sona over the last week or so to hash more of the finer details that were somewhat hidden inside of the Ko Town loan agreement that was currently in effect. Naruto had even gone with Rias and her peerage when a Rouge Devil had been spotted in the area. Rias used it as an opportunity to teach Issei the peerage system and the roles of each piece. Even the fact that Issei was probably Rias's most versatile servant in terms of combat. Naruto even imputed his own wisdom that since Issei had been revived with all 8 of Rias's pawns, he had as much power if not more so than Akeno and potential than Kiba. Something Issei had been surprised about when told this information. Nibi-san, said Naruto, raising from his chair and getting the attention of all the executives. Hi Uzumaki-dano, said Matatabi. I need you to take over this meeting. Something has happened at the main branch that requires my full attention, said Naruto. Perhaps I can help you with this, Uzumaki-san, said Gendo, hoping to get a glimpse of the top brass of the company. No need for that, Ikari-san. I need you here as you have quite a bit of knowledge of this subject. I will have a full report on my desk Monday, said Naruto as he walked out of the room. Once he was out of sight of the officials, Naruto vanished in a burst of static. Only he didn't see Hayadegoro rounding the corner at the last second. What the hell? asked the director of HR as he dropped the papers he had brought to show his boss. Location, Ko Academy. Place, ORC Clubhouse. Time, 1900 Friday. Issei stood before Naruto, Rias, and Sona as he reported what had happened to Asia when he had taken her out to show her a fun time. After she had told him about her life in the orphanage and church, he felt sorry for her and decided to show her the things she missed. Games, burgers, toys, more specifically stuffed animals and dolls dash, and farriers will ride. Then as they prepared to return to their respective homes for the evening, they had gotten ambushed by Rainer, a blue-haired fallen angel, that little blonde that had killed Issei, Donasek, and a priest that Issei had described as a silver-haired nutjob who identified himself as Freed. The priest had attacked Issei first and out of sight of the regular humans at the water fountain in the park, which Sona, Naruto, and Rias were starting to think was a supernatural hot spot. Anyway, as Issei quickly learned, the priest was a lot more skilled than Issei in combat. Even with his power doubled, Issei didn't stand a chance against Freed, who sliced Issei up and put a bullet or two in him. Before Issei could mount an effective comeback, a spear of light was thrown into his back. A spear from the blue-haired woman. Even with Asia healing him, Rainer gave her an ultimatum: come with them, or they would kill Issei. Asia, seeing no choice in the matter, gave herself up after healing Issei enough to get back to the others. With each word that came out of Issei's mouth, Naruto's anger rose until his aura was almost visible. By the time Issei was finished, Naruto had a long blonde tail and claws, and his eyes turned slit and orange. Before anyone could say anything, Naruto vanished and grabbed Issei by the throat and slammed him into the wall, leaving a large crater. Sona, Rias, Akeno, and Kurumu ran over to Naruto and tried their hardest to pry Naruto's hand off of Issei's throat. While they were trying to pry Naruto off, Tsubaki, Kiba, and Kaneko all tensed up and prepared to attack Naruto should it come to that. His arm didn't even budge from Issei's throat. "How could you allow this to happen?" yelled Naruto, just barely holding back his true demonic fury. "Naruto-san, stop it," yelled Sona. He invited her out. That means that he was confident in his acolytes to protect her, knowing that fallen angels were targeting him. He was supposed to protect her, yelled Naruto. "Papa, please stop. Placing blame won't get Asia-chan back," yelled Kurumu, trying to pull her father's arm off her friend's throat. "Uzumaki-sama, please, he did his best to protect her," yelled Rias in fear for her pawn's life. "And I failed," yelled Issei. This made all the girls and even Naruto look at him in shock. Issei had tears in his eyes, but he wasn't looking anywhere but at Naruto. He wanted to rage and scream. He wanted to rush out and save Asia. He wanted to do something. But his own weakness had gotten her taken from him. Naruto grit his teeth in anger, before throwing Issei away hard enough for him to hit the couch. Raising to his feet, Naruto went to the door and was about to rip it open, only to stop as a barrier appeared before him. "Sona, get this barrier out of my way," said Naruto, not even having to look behind him to know who had cast it. "I will not," said Sona with her hand up. "You know as well as I do that I could rip this barrier apart with just a flick of my finger," said Naruto. "I know you can. I also know that you will go and destroy the church," said Sona as she walked up to Naruto. "And what's wrong with that? They took my child hostage." Sona placed a hand on Naruto's chest. "I understand, Naruto-san, but you going and annihilating them will do more harm than good. Despite what you may think, this is a fight between devils and fallen angels. And I can see it in your eyes that you will have no problem ripping them apart, but would you regret it?" asked Sona. "No, I wouldn't," said Naruto with a straight face. "Please don't lie to us, Naruto-kun. I can see it in you. You have the power to do so many destructive things, but you are not a killer, and for you to kill in anger would be wrong. Not to mention that should you release your full power, the other powerhouses of the supernatural world will take notice," said Akeno, hoping to work in tandem with Sona to appeal to her lover's honor. "To hell with that. I will risk the wrath of the angels, the Underworld Alliance, and all the gods in the divine realm to save my daughter," growled Naruto. "She's right, Papa. You took an oath many years ago to never allow yourself to fall victim to your rage and allow yourself to put the people of the GS/Y in danger. The Papa I know would never go on a rampage and kill. You even told me. Killing in battle is one thing, as both parties have put their lives on the line for their ideals, but killing in joy and a fit of rage makes you no better than a monster. I want Asia-chan back as well, but not at the expense of my Papa's happiness or peace of mind," said Kuruma, hugging her father from behind. Naruto didn't move for a long minute. In his current state, Naruto knew that he wasn't the best judge of character and was prone to rash actions. Since coming to this world, he had always kept his anger at his enemies in check. He knew from past experience what anger on the battlefield could do to someone. When Haku had killed Sasuke, when Orochimaru had attacked them with Kabuto and spoke about Sasuke, when Nagito had invaded and nearly destroyed Konoha and nearly killed Hinata. Naruto's anger had led to mistakes. Even his greatest mistake and shame. The mistake that led to him becoming the strongest creature alive. The failure of stopping Infinite Tsukiyomi and the fusion of Kagaya into his body. Rias, said Naruto as he reverted back to his human form. Yes, Uzumaki-dano. I find myself in a difficult position. As both a father and a member of the greater Shinto/Yukai faction, I have power that most beings could only dream of, and yet because of the world and political hardships we live in, I have to hold back as if I live in a world of cardboard. I have to hold back because the balance of the mundane and supernatural must be maintained, as well as keeping all the strongest beings from doing as they please whenever they please, said Naruto as he sank to his knees and bowed to Rias. Papa? Asked Kurumu in shock. Please get my child back. Save her by whatever means you can, and I will give you anything I can within my power, said Naruto, showing for the first time in many years his valuable side as tears rolled down his face. 3. Rias looked at Naruto. As much as an ass as he had been to her in the last few weeks, she wasn't heartless. This was a man who was desperate to save his daughter. Even so, a small part of her was wondering what would happen if she used this situation to her advantage. She could in theory get there after Asia died and reincarnate her as her servant. But shook her head. She couldn't do that. Not because she couldn't use a powerful healer in her peerage. Uzumaki-sama, I promise to save Asia with everything I have. I give you my words as the heiress of the Mark of Gremory. However, please be prepared for any outcome that may occur and the payment that will come with it, said Rias, smiling as she put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Kurumu shivered. A deal with the devil in Prada, thought Kurumu. Location, Ko Town. Place, abandoned church. Time, 1000. Asia was tied to a cross with chains wrapped around her arms and feet. She felt the leers of the excommunicated priests. She heard the words about her body and the things they wished to do to her. While she was scared, she kept a brave face the entire time. She looked down at the priests, avoiding the eyes of the head priest. A silver-haired man who was more of a devil than any real devil was. One of the men grew impatient and walked up and ran a hand along her leg and up her thigh, lifting the sheer metrical of the gown she was now wearing. Before he could get to his prize, a pink spear of light fired from the darkness. It impaled the man and sent him to the ground. Leave her be. The next person who touches her will meet a much worse fate, yelled Rainier. Come on, Ray. We all got super boners for the blonde heathen slut here. Give us something, yelled a silver-haired priest. Shut your mouth, Freed. You've already killed and raped 10 people. Were it not for our abilities to manipulate people's memories and these other excommunicated priests cleaning up after you, we'd have human police on our trail, said Rainier. So it's not like we can't kill them, said Freed. Not the point. Even if we are doing things outside of the books, the golden rule remains intact. Nobody unaware of the supernatural gets involved, said Rainier. But what about the kid Millet killed, said a random goon. Irrelevant. Go and secure the entrances. I wouldn't put it past Issei to try and rescue Asia, said Rainier. Freed as well as the other excommunicated priests left Asia and Rainier alone. Lady Rainier, you don't have to do this. God would forgive any those who have wronged if they just repent and atone for your sins, said Asia. Rainier looked at Asia. While she didn't hate the girl, she was absolutely annoyed by her faith. All angels, Eve the fallen, loved God, but unlike their pure brothers and sisters, they knew the truth. They were forsaken for the humans. Unlike humans, no angels could gain access to the powers of the sacred gears, unless you counted the artificial gears her father created, but they were all only 75 to 85% as strong as the real things. I do have to do this, Asia. Not for myself, but for my people. My father isn't the type of man to put his own desires before his people, but he is too much of a pacifist to do what needs to be done. Even if God forsakes me forever, so long as my people are safe, I will do what I must, said Rainier, turning and leaving the room, making sure to seal it behind her. Location, Ko Town. Place, outskirts of the church. Time, 1030. The Gremory Devil Group plus Kurumu arrived several hundred meters outside of the church. Each of them was prepared for this battle. A battle between devils and fallen angels. Kiba had already summoned 2 swords and gave one to Issei. Issei looked at the blade. It was a long sword, different from the katana-style blades that were more common to Japan. Although Issei wasn't familiar with sword fighting outside of anime and manga, he would have to learn how to use it quickly. Activating his twice critical, Issei instantly felt his power double. He was still the weakest member of Rias's group, but it would come in handy. Our objective is to rescue Asia Uzumaki Argento. All enemies are to be neutralized. Issei-kun, Kaneko-chan, and Kiba-kun will go to the front. Akeno and I will go around the back, said Rias. Hi Bucho, said the other members of the Gremry peerage with Kuruma just nodding. Location, Ko Town. Place, outskirts of the church. Time, 1045. Rias, Akeno, and Kuruma walked around the back just outside of the barrier that the fallen angels had set up. Despite the fact that the frontal assault group had already tripped the barrier, Rice was sure that the fallen wouldn't be so easily fooled. While they waited for the fireworks to go off, Akeno, said Rias, I have something I want to ask you. Yes, what is it, Rias? Asked Kuruma. Rias bit her lip. Your relationship with Uzumaki is pretty serious, is it not? Asked Rias. Akeno summoned several of her familiars and sent them off. I don't know what you're talking about, Rias, said the black-haired young woman. Rias narrowed her eyes. You stopped accepting contracts over a year ago, and whenever Uzumaki-san is in town, you've also given yourself to him multiple times, said Rias. Akeno turned to Rias with a glare. So I had sex? You know that I always planned on losing my virginity in a unique way by being a mistress, said Akeno. That I did know, but that's not what I'm saying. You've been distracted by Uzumaki-sama. What is your point, Rias? My point is, are you my queen or are you his woman? Asked Rias. Akeno was taken aback by her best friend's words. I'm both. Just because I love Naruto doesn't mean I have forgotten how you saved me from my mother's family. I will forever be grateful to you, Lord Gremry, Lady Gremry, and Lord Lucifer for taking me in, but there will be a time, Rias, where I want a family. A husband, children, grandchildren. A future I can see with Naruto-san, said Akeno. Hey, can you two sort out your problems later? We're here to rescue my sister, said Kuruma. Rias opened her mouth to respond, but stopped and turned and created a magic shield that stopped a blue spear. Once the spear lost its energy, lost its remaining mana, Rias lowered her shield. Forgive me, but you two were so engrossed in conversation that I couldn't help but attack, said Danasik. Rias and Akeno glared at the location where he stood on top of a tree alongside two other fallen angels. Akeno, not one for pleasantries at the moment, pulled her hands apart. Akeno changed into her priestess outfit and flew into the sky. I'm not in the mood for games today. Storm of torment! Yelled Akeno as she unleashed several bolts of lightning at the fallen angels. Danasik and Kalawarna managed to get out of the way, but Midlet wasn't lucky and was electrocuted by Akeno's lighting blast. Midlet screamed in pain as she fell out of the sky, only to be caught by Kalawarna before she was set down. Kalawarna summoned a spear and threw it at Rias. Rias jumped backward, making the spear miss as she summoned her own power of destruction and shaped it into a spear, before throwing it at Kalawarna. Kalawarna moved out of the way of the power of destruction. Danasik rushed at Kuruma and summoned two spears as he planned to end the fight quickly. Kuruma ducked under the spears and opened her hand, as two swirling orbs of demonic energy appeared. Not going to get the drop on me twice. Twin Rasengan! Yelled Kuruma as she thrust the orbs into Danasik's stomach. The male fallen angel has sent flying several feet away. Rias looked at Kalawarna. Kalawarna looked at Rias, before both charged at each other. Kalawarna summoned her spear and thrust it at Rias. Kalawarna missed, and Rias charged power of destruction into her hand. She raised her hand into the sky. I'm not in the mood for games today. Storm of torment! Yelled Akeno as several bolts of lightning fell from the sky. Grit those teeth, bitch! Fist of destruction! Yelled Rias, hitting Kalawarna in the face, burning her in the process, and sending her flying into the tree. 1. Akeno looked at her friend. Really, Rias? Asked Akeno. Rias shook her hand. What, it was on my list of cool things to say during a fight, said Rias. Location, Ko Town. Place, abandoned church. Time, 0010. The battle between the frontal assault group and Rainier, Freed, and the several priests. The battle has started with the trio taking on Freed. It had been a pretty quick fight, as after Kaneko had busied his ribs, as Kiba slashed him across his chest. Once they had managed to open the sealed room, they had come into the room in the middle of the ritual, and they had come just in time for it to finish as Rainier took Asia's sacred gear. Issei and Rainier had gotten to the main church and had it out in a fight. Rainier managed to heal all of the damage done to her by Issei, until he unlocked the full base power of the sacred gear, fully awaking into the Longinus class, Boosted gear. With a single boost, Issei was strong enough to knock Rainier out as Kaneko, and Kiba came to the top after dealing with the priests, with Asia on Kaneko's back. 2. Issei held Asia as everyone crowded around them. Akeno held the lightning chains around the 4 defeated fallen angels who all sat on the ground. Kuruma looked at her sister in worry as she grabbed the blonde's hand. It was so cold and her pulse was so weak. Asia-chan. Asia-chan, can you hear me? Asked Issei, giving Asia a small shake to try and wake her up. Asia opened her eyes and smiled at Issei and Kuruma. Issei, you came for me, you too, Kuruma-san, said Asia. Kuruma couldn't hold back her tears as she held her big sister's hand. I told you, it's Kurune, yelled the woman. Akeno tried to hold back her own tears. She may have been a battle sadist and sex masochist, but how could the universe be so cruel to someone so pure? Naruto would be devastated if Asia died. The man had already lost so much in his life. Lovers, children, friends. Even a long-lived species like devils would die of old age. The oldest living devil, the great King Beal, who had seen the original fall of Lucifer fall, would one day die of old age, even though he was on his 10,000th year of life. Rias bit her lip before she summoned her bishop to her. She didn't have any healing magic strong enough to preserve Asia, and she promised to save Asia no matter what. Thinking quickly, she summoned her red chess pieces, having only a bishop, knight, and rook piece left over. The knight and rook were crimson red, as all evil pieces were. Her bishop piece, however, had glowing black energy around. A mutation piece. Her bishop is the only piece that could save her. With Asia being a sacred gear user, she had her gear was at least until Rainier's ritual tied to her life force. If Asia was fully allowed to pass on, Twilight healing would pass to another. However, Uzumaki-sama had asked her to save Asia in whatever way she could. She knew that he would be pissed, but she had no choice. She would reincarnate Asia as a devil. Asia, said Rias, kneeling before her. This is an evil piece. This will save your life, but in return you will become a devil and then my servant. Asia's breath was shallow. Are there any drawbacks? Asked Asia. Rias bit her lip. God will forsake you. Your cross, you will never be able to touch again. Light magic will also become toxic to you, said Rias. If it will allow me to stay with my new family and Issei, I will sell my soul to Satan, said Isa. Rias nodded before standing up. I, Rias Gremory, hereby order you, heed me, Asia Argento. Bring your soul back to this world, and become my servant devil. You shall become my bishop and rejoice in your newfound life. The bishop flew at Asia, and as it was about to imprint itself on her chest, it sank in slightly before both Asia and Rias screamed as her eyes widened in pain as Rias fell to her knees, before the bishop was violently ejected and landed next to Rias. That's impossible, said Kiba as he helped Rias to her feet. There is no way that an evil piece could be rejected by someone on the verge of death. Not normally, but those of my blood is different, said Naruto as he appeared alongside Matatabi from a portal. Papa, I didn't think you would make it in time, said Kuruma. Rias turned to Kuruma. When did you call Uzumaki Dano? Asked Rias. Right around the time Issei returned with Asia-chan, said Kuruma. I know that my father would be needed once we finished the fallen angels. Uzumaki-san, what do you mean about the evil piece? Naruto picked up the mutated evil piece. When the devils first created the evil pieces, I grew worried that someone would force me into servitude. Despite what most people, even powerful beings, can be manipulated or mind-controlled. I stole one of the king pieces and began to reverse engineer it. It's actually quite an impressive bit of soul magic, sealing magic, biological science, and devil alchemy. The woman I considered my mother helped me figure out how to create a defense against it in my DNA. Anyone who shares my blood can never be turned into a devil via the evil piece system, said Naruto as he flicked it back to Rias. 3. Then forgive me, Uzumaki-sama, as I can't save Asia from death, said Rias, lowering her head in shame that she couldn't fulfill one request. Naruto walked up to Asia and looked at her. It's fine. I'm going to save her, but once I do this, I'm not sure what the results will be since I haven't had a descendant active with an active chakra network in over 1,000 years, said Naruto as he placed a hand on Asia's forehead. Asia looked at Naruto and smiled a weak smile. Father, you're here, said Asia. The blonde-haired man smiled at Asia. Don't worry, kiddo. I'm not going to let you die. After all, I got a lot of things I want to show you, said Naruto. What do we need to do, Uzumaki Dano? Asked Rias. Place her sacred gear back on her fingers and leave the rest to me. Matatabi, hold her down and don't let her up. Naruto took a moment to fill her life force. Asia was hanging on, but only by a hair. Naruto would have to act quickly and take her from Issei. Naruto then removed Asia's dress, before he summoned a brush and ink. Both were quite special. The brush was made from the wood of a 3,000-year-old tree of life, and the ink was made from the leaves of Yggdrasil. Naruto then began to write over Asia where the 8 chakra gates were located. The seals Naruto drew on Asia would allow him to use his own demonic chakra to open her gates without poisoning her, as his more potent demonic chakra was toxic when used on humans. Naruto sighed before he ran through hand signs before he struck Asia 8 times. An explosion of blinding blue chakra rushed out of Asia's body, making her own eyes open, and she let out a howl of pain. Issei and Kuruma wanted to rush in and help her but knew that there was nothing they could do to help their friend. Rias was in awe of the power that Asia had sealed inside of her. Asia had more power than Rias and Akeno combined at the moment. She would grow up to be a massive powerhouse in the supernatural world. Behind everyone, Kaneko was shaking in fear. The feeling was just like when She went crazy. The chakra began to rapidly fade, as Asia was once again close to death. Naruto wasn't going to allow that to happen. Naruto ran through hand signs before placing his hands over her head and heart. He wasn't sure what the results would be, but he knew that Asia would no longer be fully human after this. Yin-yang release, one's own life reincarnation, said Naruto as his hands glowed blue. The chakra turned his own life force into Asia's own, stabilizing her and bringing her back from the brink of demise. When Granny Chio used this technique to revive Gaara, she had been the only one to know it. However, Gaara still declared it a kinjutsu. Before the Fourth Great War, he had shared this technique with Konoha's own great medic Tsunade, who in turn had Sakura and Shizen learn more about it in a bid to see how to combat its effects. Sadly, the only way for both people to live through it was with the half-life technique. The requirements for it made it its own almost worse variation on the technique, seeing as how it required a monstrous amount of chakra to save a said person. A person like Naruto who was practically immortal. As the life force entered Asia's body, she slowly began to change. She grew taller, her breasts grew slightly larger, a pair of golden wings grew from out of her back, scales grew along her arms up to her elbow and from her feet to her knees, and a long thick tail grew and was as long as she was tall, finally a pair of slightly curved horns on her head. Naruto reached out and summoned a red floor-length coat, with black flames on the bottom, before using it to wrap Asia up, covering her modesty. While it may have seemed counterproductive, Naruto had needed her to be naked so that he could force the inner chakra gates. Aside from that, he was already pissed off at Issei for getting a sneak peek at his daughter's lower region without them even being in a relationship. His daughters, even though Kuruma was technically a demon of sex, were OFF limits. "What happened to her?" asked Issei. Naruto looked at Issei with a blank expression. Thanks to Asia's ancestral mother being a previous wielder of the boosted gear and having a good relationship with the spirit inside, by the time she died she was a dragonkin. Thanks to my unlocking of Asia's chakra pathways, she had become a stronger version of a dragonkin. A dragonborn, I might have accidentally increased and unlocked a subset to Twilight Healing as well, said Naruto. Matatabi face-bombed. Only you would be so lucky to unlock one of your child's abilities, said Matatabi. Naruto didn't bother to reply to his lover. Instead, he lifted Asia in a bridal-style carry, making sure that her head was cradled in the nape of his neck so that she was comfortable. Rias opened her mouth to say something, but before she could, several magic circles appeared. Circles that belonged to the fallen angels. At least a dozen or so. One of the angels who stood closer to Rias, and her peerage prepared to fight before the Citri magic circle appeared. As the circle vanished, Sona and Tsubaki stood there as the fallen finished materializing. The fallen, who appeared to be at the head of the group, flew to the ground and landed before Rias on one knee. She, like most supernatural beings, was beautiful beyond message. She was shorter than Rias, but barely taller than Kaneko, with breasts that rivaled Akeno's. Her hair is long and navy on the outside while pink on the inside, and is tied with a bow, wearing a gothic French dress that went just above her knees, black open-toed high heels, and finally a pair of black and purple striped thigh-high socks. Coming from her back was 8 wings. She also had a toy cat in her arms. 4. Rias pulled all her demonic mana into her hands, ready to strike the fallen before her, only for Sona to hold out her hand in front of her. "What are you doing, Sona? These angels are here to take our prisoners." "Stand down, Rias," said Sona. "No. I've allowed them to roam our territory too long. I will put them out of our misery." Sona pulled out a scroll that had the seal of Leviathan on it. "They are here under the protection of the Devil Office of Foreign Affairs." Rias and the others looked at Sona in surprise. The angel landed before Rias and Sona. "You might want to close your mouth, fire crotch, or do you normally keep it open so anyone can stick a cock in it?" said the girl with her bored expression never leaving her face. Rias blushed in indignation, while Naruto was thinking if he should try and bed this that one-hitter quitter alone. Sona, it seems, decided to put a stop to the potential fight before it started. Cadre Anarchy, you are only inside of this territory because you are to escort the prisoners, nothing more. Please do not antagonize my fellow territory chair, said Sona. Cadre Anarchy turned and nodded to the fallen angels before they flowed down to Akeno, who gave them a stern look, before handing over the magical binding chains. The fallen angel cadre created a magic circle. Wait! Yelled Rainier. What is it, Rainier? Asked Cadre Anarchy. Rainier turned to the three leaders, taking a particular interest in Naruto's eyes. The deep oceans of blue. She still felt some fear in the back of her mind, but also a strong desire. She knew that to an extent Calawarna felt it too. Her friend practically had a thing for men with powerful auras. Shaking her head, she managed to steel herself for what she was about to do. She fell to her knees and inclined her head. Her team looked at her in shock. Rainier, what are you doing? Asked Calawarna. Get to your feet, Rainier. You have no reason to bow, said Donasek. Sis, get up, yelled Meltiot. Quiet, yelled Rainier, silencing her friends. I must ask for your forgiveness. Not for myself, but for my team. We had orders to observe and learn about the sacred gear that Issei had. It was I who made the choice to. Cut the bull, Rainier, yelled Donasek. I'm not going to let her throw herself on the sword to protect us. It's true that we were ordered to observe not just Issei, but the people of Ko as a whole, said Calawarna. Why is that? Asked Rias. According to our research, there appears to be a high number of people being born with sacred gears. We don't know the numbers, but it's pretty damn high. How would a low-ranking fallen angel like you know this? Asked Sona. We are few in number, Eris Citri, so we are closer than you know. Unlike you devils who number in the millions and are growing by the day thanks to the evil peace system, we fallen angels are barely a million, even with those who had children with humans, said Cadre Anarchy. I currently do not care about that, yelled Rainier. All I ask is your forgiveness and beg you to be lenient on us. It is not my place to forgive you, said Naruto, making everyone look at him in shock. It is Asia's. Rainier nodded. I understand. The fallen angels vanished in their circles. Matatabi raised her hand and opened a portal. Matatabi quickly followed with Naruto about to walk in. Hey, wait! Where are you going? Asked Issei. Asia needs to heal. She will take at least a week to recover. I promise that you will see her again. Also, Rias, I won't forget what you did. I will keep my promise to you, said Naruto. Rias smiled at Naruto. I'll hold you to it, Uzumaki Dano. Naruto walked into the portal as it closed behind him, leaving the Gremry group behind. Issei looked at the location where the group left. Rias put a hand on Issei's shoulder. Come, Aviasi, let's head home. The battle is complete, said Rias. Issei nodded as Rias opened a portal and they left the area. Location unknown. Place unknown. Time unknown, Saturday. The blaring alarm was almost as bad as the bells that used to be the signal to wake up in the orphanage. The matrons always said that those who were not up before the bell would get a lashing. However, one of the rare occasions she was allowed to sleep, she enjoyed it. She enjoyed the dreams that saw her having friends, she enjoyed the dreams where she wasn't held on a pedestal, she was just too comfy and didn't want to get up at the moment. A golden-clawed hand reached out and smashed the alarm clock to bits. Before Isa could snuggle deeper into her blankets and return to the world of dreams where she found herself dreaming of Issei, they were yanked off of her, leaving her as naked as the day she was born. This had the side effect of forcing her to wrap her arms, wings, and tail around herself and curl into a tight ball to keep warm. Wait, wings? Tail? Thought Asia as her eyes shot open and shot up and looked at her clawed hands. So your brain is finally firing on all cylinders? That's good. 15 hours 32 minutes, and 19 seconds. I was afraid that you'd be out for at least 2 days, but then again you are one of his children now. All of you kids inherited his thick skull and recovery ability, came a sultry voice. Asia looked at where the voice came from and looked at a woman who was sitting there reading a rather raunchy book, if the title was anything to go off of. A beautiful and bustive woman in her early/mid-30s who looked a lot like Kurama, as they both had light blue hair that, unlike Kurama's, reached the middle of her back, and purple eyes. She was slender and could easily pass for a supermodel or movie star. If Asia had to take a guess, she was slightly taller than Matatabi. She wore a bright red strapless dress that is also specifically a mini dress in length, with a black hem, a white belt that made the dress seem skin-tight, a black sparkling coat with a light tan fur collar, and a pair of gold heart-shaped earrings, and a matching heart necklace. On her left ring finger was a golden-colored ring with a diamond on it. Ma, who are you?" asked Asia. The woman gave a small giggle. "My name is Uzumaki Kurono Ageda. I'm the woman you call father's second wife," said Ageda, holding up her hand. "Second wife?" asked Asia. Before Ageda could open her mouth, the door opened and Naruto walked into the room followed by another woman. This woman was as beautiful as Ageda, but she had a more elegant air about her. Very beautiful fair-skinned young woman with long pink hair that she ties in a black ribbon and green eyes. Wearing red short shorts, black low heels, a black bikini top, and a very beautiful fair-skinned young woman with long pink hair that she ties in a black ribbon and green eyes. On her left ring finger was a platinum band on her finger with a blood ruby in the center. "Asia, you're finally awake," said Naruto with a smile. "Father, who is that woman behind you?" asked Asia. Naruto smiled. "I see that you've already met Agetha-chan. Asia, I'd like to introduce you to my first wife. Akasha Uzumaki Bloodriver. Queen of all vampires, mother to my eldest daughter, and one of the Council Dark Lords, leaders of the monster faction. She's also my wife in public." Asia looked back and forth between them. "So does this mean I have two mothers?" asked Asia. Akasha and Asia squalled, before they glomped onto Asia. Asia blushed at this while Naruto chuckled. "When you two are done embarrassing Asia, make sure to bring her downstairs to eat. She must be starving after her body went through the changes," said Naruto. "Changes? But I feel fine, father," said Asia. "Right now you do, but you're going to have to retrain a large portion of your body. Also, because you are now a dragonborn, your mentality is slightly different. I'll speak with you more over the weekend about what a dragonkin and a dragonborn are when we have a free moment. I'll also train you up a bit in the use of your inherent abilities. For now, just enjoy life, Asia. Be a kid, get spoiled by your new mothers and siblings," said Naruto. As Naruto left Asia with her new mommy, she couldn't help but notice that her father was sad. Not in the fact that he didn't love his family, but sad from a past that he never got to see. In fact, Asia could see the sadness, mixed in with his joy. There was something else there, something Asia couldn't quite put her finger on. Location: Sanctuary. Place: Uzumaki Tower. Time: 14:30 Saturday. Asia, after managing to get out from Akasha and Ageda, was now at the table with the rest of the family. She was dressed after Ageda selected the cutest bathing suit for her. A one-piece blue bathing suit with shorts on and a cute blush on her face. She was not used to wearing such revealing clothes. Even when she wore something, the most that would be revealed was her arms. She sat next to Kurama as she was closet to her outside of Naruto. Naruto sat at the head of the table with Akasha on his right and Ageda on his left. Miss Matatabi sat on Agetha's left. Next to Akasha sat a girl who looked a lot like her. Kinda like Kurama did to Miss Agetha. Only her breasts were much bigger than her mother seemed to be. She wore a white dress with a bracelet on her left arm. Next was a man who looked like father, only his hair was red and he was larger in stature, more bulky. A woman who was even more busted than Agetha. Between them was a girl with a lot of tails wagging around as she happily ate her ramen. Another man was present with sandy blonde hair, yellow eyes. He wasn't very tall, maybe around the same height as Akasha. On the right side of his forehead was a tattoo that said regret in kanji, wearing a crimson long-sleeve shirt with several buttons and pants that matched the color of his shirt. A brown belt, and now has a small gourd which is strapped to his left side. A trench coat. Finally was a black-haired version of Naruto. Except he wore a full suit, while everyone else wore what could be akin to beach attire. "Sama, can we get this over with? I have a security meeting I have to get to," said black-haired Naruto. "Chill your hide, brat," said red-haired Naruto. "Ha! We have so much security around Kyoto that only a full-scale invasion could break in," said the sandy blonde man. The brat in question narrowed his eyes. "That's enough, boys, we're all here for Asia-chan," said the busted blonde woman. "Aside from Kurumane and Matatabi-san, I don't know anyone else here," said Asia. Red-haired Naruto snorted. "Well, kid, this here is our happy little family," said red-haired Naruto. "Asia, you are a part of our family now, and I invited the rest of our immediate family to meet you," said Naruto. "Immediate family?" asked Asia. Matatabi took a sip of her wine. "Naruto-kun used to get around back in the day," said the blue-haired woman, dropping her secretary persona. "Like how you are a direct descendant of Papa, you're not the only one. Across Japan and Europe, Papa has at least 400 descendants. Papa has to have a bit of succubi blood in him. He's a bit of a whore," said Kuruma, only to get smacked on the head by Agetha. You're forgetting that before I met your father I was something of a whore myself. Honestly, I miss some of those days, but your father makes up for a lot of it, said Asia, her eyes locking on Naruto with lust-filled gaze. The pink-haired girl and Asia both blushed at this. The blonde woman cleared her throat this time, filling the air with her aura. I believe that we are supposed to be introducing ourselves to Asia. My name is Yoko Yasaka. I am Deputy Commander of Kyoto and Guardian of the Japanese ley line, said the blonde-haired woman. I'm Yoko Kuru. Guardian of the ley line in training, said the young blonde. The red-haired Naruto smiled. I am Yoko Kurama, husband of Yasaka and commander of Kyoto's military forces, said Kurama with a thumbs up. You've already met me, but if I must give you an official title, I'm matron of the Lucky 9 strip club / betrothal in Vegas. But I don't mind being called mommy, said Asia. I introduced myself in the room, but if you have to call me something, mother is fine, said Akasha with Asia glaring Akasha. I guess that leaves me and the brat. I'm Shikaku. I don't have a last name. I'm the head of Kyoto's agriculture division, said the sandy blonde man. My name is Uzumaki Menma. I'm the leader of the Shadows, Kyoto's ninja forces. I'm also Tusama's eldest child, currently living at 213 years old, said Menma. For clarity, that makes him older than me, but younger than Akasha, joked Asia. Menma glared at the succubus, but there was no real heat behind his glare. In fact, Asia could feel that the people in this room loved each other with all their heart, and would do anything to protect each other. As the meal progressed, they spoke and talked. They broke bread, they laughed. They played. Asia felt herself smiling more and more as the meal went on. She got to know her new siblings. Her new aunt and uncles, her new mamas. Her little cousin. Asia felt blessed that she was able to get to know her new family. Location: Sanctuary. Place: Uzumaki Tower, Naruto's office. Time: 1800 Saturday. Naruto looked out the window of the balcony as he downed some bourbon, looking at the sunset. Asia, Kurumu, Kuru, and Mocha were all playing volleyball, with Menma keeping watch over them, or rather Asia and Kuru dragging the edgelord into the game as ref. Yasaka was lazing about in the sun with Asia. That left Naruto, Kurama, Matatabi, Akasha, and Shikaku to speak among themselves. Naruto had decided to fill them in on the things that happened in Ko while he was there. Kurama and Shikaku frowned, while Akasha looked down in understanding. How could you let that little devil bitch lead you around by the nose? Yelled Shikaku at his younger brother figure. Don't remind me, groaned Naruto as he sank into his leather chair. No, you need to be reminded. You are one of the strongest beings in the universe. You killed Kagaya. You fought in both the Great War and the Devil's Civil War. Hell, you even helped to create the greater Shinto / Yukai faction, but you can't keep a little girl under control, growled Shikaku. Naruto narrowed his eyes. We have to play nice, or we could have heaven hunting you down again, Shikaku. I didn't slaughter a legion of angels during the Great War to save your ass just so we could go to war against them again. Even with God incapacitated, Michael and the Seraph are all strong. Heaven still has an active bounty open for my ass, said Naruto. He's right on that count. Gabriel is still pissed that you kissed her during battle, said Kurama. Naruto shrugged. Not my fault that God programmed her to be such a pure thing. That meltdown over a little peck on the lips, said Naruto. Still doesn't explain why you're playing nice, said Shikaku as he slugged a shot of vodka. Because it's in our best interest to play nice. Remember, Shikaku, I grew up as a warrior, not a statesman. Even Sarutobi was a warrior before he allowed himself to get cozy on his throne as Hokage. We have to play nice with not only the devils but the Shinto gods and monster faction as well. In case you forgot, Shikaku, part of the reason I've been keeping these three factions happy is that the Shinto faction has done a great job of keeping the Divine Alliance out of our way, while the devils seem to have one of the largest gatherings of sacred gears, making it possible for us to run across the others at some point. Gears that we hope have the other six sealed in them. Oh, and the monster faction have a better ear to the ground than even some of our own allies do, said Naruto. It still doesn't bring us a step